Good morning. Going live a few minutes early just to test my audio. Gonna wait for it to show up over here. Testing, testing. Music sounds good. Music is a little bit loud compared to my voice, so I will try to turn that down a little bit. If I turn down the system audio, does that help? I'm not sure. Here, I'll turn it down a little bit there, and then we should be good. Point is, there's no echo or anything, so we should be good to go. And I'm going to turn it back up for my listening pleasure, because I love the music in this game. It's so relaxing. It is now 8 a.m. Welcome to Our Life, Beginnings and Always. This is a visual novel that I started playing a little while ago, back in January, and I haven't finished it yet. And I think actually the last part of the game isn't out yet, but the amazing thing is that it is free. It's a free visual novel, and there's optional DLC that expands the story, but the basics are available for free. And it struck me as being pretty high quality, and it's also a very relaxing game because there isn't really a way to lose. You make choices which affect the outcome, but there aren't like any bad endings. So on the title screen here is Cove. The game takes place over different time periods. Starts off when he's a kid, and then he grows up, and you do too. And yeah, that's how it works. So we're going to start a new file. Would you like gameplay explanation sections to appear? I think we'll say yes. Welcome to Our Life, Beginning and Always. There are various ways you can customize and interact with the game. This tutorial is an overview of how certain features work. You can read the full tutorial from the main menu to learn about everything in detail. To start off, the game is divided into 3 time periods called steps. Step 1, childhood, Step 2, adolescence, and Step 3, teenaged. Our life is further divided into sets of vignettes that take place during specific periods of time. Those are called moments. Moments can be played in any order or skipped entirely. You move on to the next step whenever you want by selecting that summer is ending. Steps 1 through 3 include 5 moments each, and even more can be unlocked by purchasing DLCs. Some are out now, and other DLCs will release later on. A lot happens over the years that go by, especially in regard to the character you play as. You determine nearly everything about the main character: name, appearance, personality, pronouns, interests, skills, their relationship with major characters, and so on. You can decide to change the details as time goes on, with a few exceptions. Your last name, skin tone, and eye color can't be altered once set. Much of the main character's basic traits are determined on a character creation screen. As the main character grows up, more options become available on the screen. As mentioned, one of the decisions you'll get to make for your character is selecting a name. You can type in any name you like, or you can pick a preset name. Preset options are called voiced names because the name will be voiced aloud by the romantic lead. You'll get to hear him say your name as you play through the story. Only the default name, Jamie, is included in the base game. Hundreds more can be added by getting a free voiced name expansion DLC, which we have. If you're not interested in that feature, you don't need to add the name collection to your game file. Each name in the DLC belongs to or was selected by someone who supported this project. Lastly, you can change the spelling of a name after selecting the voice option you want, for example, going from gray to gray. On the character creation screen, there's a cute doll you can decorate to get an idea of what your MC looks like, with different traits put together. Not all the things you decide about the main character appear on the doll. The script referencing what you've decided for the main character is the main way those decisions influence the game. Our Life has a first-person perspective, so your character doesn't appear next to other character sprites. You only see the main character as a decorative doll on the character creation screens. So I guess it doesn't really matter that much. There's also a second type of special main character-based screen, the Interest Comfort screen. Unless you get DLCs, the game has one love interest, Cove Holden. He grows up with the MC, and the Interest Comfort screen is crucial for determining how that plays out. Interest level sets how much you like him. There are 4 levels: Disinterest, Fond, Crush, and Love. Love is only available starting in Step 3, and if you are at Fond or Crush in Step 2. Comfort determines how you generally react and think when it comes to him. There are 3 levels: Nervous, Relaxed, and Direct. Your level of interest and comfort will set the type of dynamic your character has with your love interest. What you did in the past will influence the present, and feelings can change over time. You get to pick your interest and comfort near the beginning of every step. Comfort can switch between the 3 levels as you please. Your interest level can only stay the same or increase. Your current level of interest will become the new lowest option on the screen in the future. For example, if you decide to be fond in Step 1, disinterest will be gone from the screen in Steps 2 and 3, which will make fond the bottom level option for your relationship. Interest level has an impact when it comes to physically interacting with Cove. While growing up, things are rather simple. If you get along with one another and have a close relationship, you can choose to touch him, and Cove will occasionally interact with the MC in lighthearted or comforting ways. But starting in Step 3, touching can become more romantic or suggestive if you're at crush or love. To make sure things go nicely with that, there will be an extra choice to determine initiative level, and a bonus mini-tutorial that goes along with the choice to explain the feature in more detail. Basically, even if you decide you like Cove, the game won't force you to act on those feelings. You can always choose not to get together with him, choose not to accept or give romantic gestures, etc. If you do decide to date Cove, though, you can't break up with him later. Some bots are attacking me, it looks like. Interest Comfort gets the basics down, but it's the choices that appear. Yeah, let me see if I can clear that on the recording here. Can I refresh the Twitch? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they just spam me all at once. Bam, bam, bam. Oh, I missed it. I don't know if there's a way to go back. Nope. And it isn't only the main character who's impacted by your decisions. Cove grows and changes over the years. How he's treated and what he experiences help shape who he becomes. In Step 2 and Step 3, Cove's personality, appearance, and interests will vary based on what happened in the previous step. It's something of a mystery exactly how your decisions end up changing him. You can try to guess as you go along. Or if you prefer, you can also just design your own ideal Cove directly using the Cove Creator option that pops up at the beginning of Steps 2 and 3. Like I said, this game is pretty easy in terms of, like, there isn't really a way to lose. Making the choices you want is always more important than making a choice because you feel like you have to in order to get a certain result. When a choice does appear, you'll usually see that hovering the cursor over an option shows a certain color, yellow, blue, or green. The colors aren't related to specific points or effects. They're only there to give a bit of insight on the tone and emotion of the choice, since text alone can potentially be read in more than one way. Blue tends to be casual or straightforward, yellow tends to be more emotive and reactive, and green less certain or uncommitted. Though there are hundreds of options in our life, and not every choice menu falls in line with that pattern, picking just one color every time doesn't give a gameplay benefit. Only stick to a certain type if that's what you happen to like. Otherwise, switch between them freely. Always pick yellow, never pick yellow, pursue romance right from the start, never romance the love interest, be disagreeable or amiable. None of them will lead to a bad ending. You're welcome to enjoy the events and shape the story without reservation, and then if you like, you can play again to try something new. There's only ever more good content to discover. We hope you'll have a nice time with Our Life. Thank you for playing. Okay, so here is the character creation screen. I'm gonna pick a she pronoun and a lot of different names that you can scroll through here. We're
Kate!
Yeah. And you could just have last name last, I guess, if you want. Have a lot of different skin tones. A lot of different eye colors too. Eye colors that don't make sense. Red if you want to be like a demon spawn. We'll go with blue. I had pretty long hair as a child. So we'll do something like that. Yeah, it doesn't super matter because it's like you never really see the main character again. Last name letters, right? Makes sense. Change page. Oh, you could put like scars or rosy cheeks. I don't like how that looks. Glasses. Oh, and all kinds of stuff. I wear all clothing types. I actually don't really like accessories. And then I think we just say done. Summer in Sunset Bird was a special time of year. Your usually sleepy town began to bustle. It was a popular tourist destination with people coming from all over to enjoy the beach, the weather, and the relaxation that came with both. The smell of the ocean, crisp and salty, hung in the air, bringing 3 whole months of schoolless vacation with it. During the summer, your moms didn't like you to wander too far outside of your neighborhood, so you knew the area pretty well. That included the people. Families came and went from Sunset Bird, but they mostly stayed and did what your mom called putting down roots. They built businesses, they got to know each other, and they definitely said hello to the nice young kids who waved when passing their stores. Going for a walk around town mostly meant that the familiar, friendly residents waved, or asked you how your family was, or more often just said hello. Our first choice. So there's our blue, yellow, and green. We'll say you were too anxious to say hi back to most of the other residents that greeted you, but they all knew you well enough to expect that. They still smiled at you anyway, and that made you feel a little more comfortable. But today, there was a man sitting on the curb outside your house. He was sitting with his head in his hands, his whole body slumped over, and you wondered if he was even a real person or a statue that had magically sprung up from the ground overnight. Whoever or whatever he was, you had never seen him before. One thing about knowing everyone in Sunset Bird was that people who you didn't recognize really stood out. It was rare for tourists to venture into the residential district, as your moms called it. So for you, not knowing who a total stranger was set off a lot of red flags. Your moms had a talk with you and your big sister Lizzie about this kind of situation before. You remember that it's okay to run away if you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to worry about being polite then. You weren't sure about this man yet. Still, you felt a bit scared knowing that he was blocking the way to your front door. You slowed down, your mind racing for ideas on how to get past him unseen, but it was too late to escape. There was a split second where your eyes met, and you took in a shaky breath, your eyes darting to the sky, pretending to stare at a bird who was hovering nearby. "Hey!" His voice startled you and made you jump, but still you didn't look at him. The bird landed on top of a nearby gatepost, and its black feathers ruffled against the gentle breeze. Trying to keep your eyes on it was tough, though, especially when the man stood up and started making his way towards you. Your whole body was frozen in place as he approached. "Do you live around here? What's your name?" You looked the man up and down, taking in his tanned skin and relaxed appearance. At least his clothes were relaxed. The way he was acting wasn't. He had sharks on his shorts and a stingray tattoo, and you wondered if he was obsessed with the ocean or something. While you made your assessment, he looked at you expectantly, waiting for an answer to his question. "I'm not talking to strangers." You continue to say nothing. "If you do," he rubbed the back of his neck uncomfortably, giving you a small smile. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean $20 bill. It crinkled in his hand as he held it up to you. Even more confused than before, you looked back at him.
Well,
could you do me a favor?" "Nothing bad. Sorry, I should have. Let me start over." He cleared his throat and stood up straighter. From where you were standing, it just made him look creepier. "I have a son. His name is Cove, who's about your age." You chewed on the inside of your cheek. This guy was definitely obsessed with water. He wasn't the only person like that in Sunset Bird. "We've moved in across the street. See?" He gestured toward the house that had been empty for a year, his watch catching the late afternoon sunlight and reflecting off the walls. The gigantic "for sale" sign was finally gone. "You must be Kate Letters, right? I met your moms earlier and they told me you were 8 just like him, so..." He shook the $20 bill to bring it back to your attention, a hopeful smile tilting his lips at the corners. "Can you try to be friends with the boy? Just give it a chance, and you can keep this. He's a good kid. You'll like him." I would just like to point out that he is literally bribing me to be friends with his kid. Is this a guy who feels like money solves all problems? Ooh, I'm gonna need to keep the water close by.
do you mind?
But you've got to keep it a secret too, okay? It wouldn't be friendly to say his dad sent you. I kind of felt sorry for Cove. This definitely wasn't the normal way kids made friends, you knew that. "What do you say? Want to make a deal?" You ran away. You spun around and made a break for it. "Stranger danger!" You turned on the spot and bolted down the street, ignoring his calls from behind you. "Hey! Come back! I'm sorry if I scared you. I didn't know how else to ask." The soles of your shoes slapped against the concrete sidewalk as you ran, heat from the sun warm on your face. Step 1, first sight. Eventually, his shouting faded into the distance. You let yourself slow down and try to catch your breath, wiping the sweat from your forehead with the back of your hand. The chirping of crickets in tall, dry grass echoed around you, and you lifted your head to survey your surroundings. You'd run right into the hills behind your house's backyard. From here, you could probably get back inside without seeing the guy again. Just so you guys know, I am making totally different choices than my first run through, and so I'm having to think about them. And if you guys have any preference for which choice to pick, let me know, because it doesn't actually, you can't kill me. There's no way to lose this game. I'm going to say the fence was pretty high, but if I stood on the neighbor's shorter fence post first, I might be able to pull myself over. Your moms wouldn't want you doing something like that, but it was an emergency. You took in a deep breath. You wanted to try to relax and couldn't. You weren't sure what, but something told you that you weren't alone, so you glanced around. There was a boy sitting at the top of one hill, almost completely hidden within the long grass and white flowers surrounding him. His head was buried in his knees, staring ahead by himself. For whatever reason, probably just that he wasn't paying attention, he hadn't noticed you yet. You watched him a minute longer, feeling a little bit like you found a deer in the wild, though deer didn't have pink casts, but this new boy did. You wondered how he got it. After a few more seconds, you took a step forward and then another. And then he glanced your way. His aquamarine eyes reflected the light of the moon. You stopped, raising a hand to acknowledge him and show you weren't scary. I'll just say hi. With a start, he jumped to his feet, his hands balling into fists at his sides. He didn't say anything, just stared at you in a strange way. He had been crying. There were traces of tears on his cheeks and his knees, soaking the hem of his shorts, and his eyes were still shining with a few more. You'd obviously caught him off guard. He was your age, but he didn't look familiar. Maybe he was that boy the weird new neighbor had been talking about before you ran. The only way to actually know was to ask. Who are you? I've never seen you. He sniffed a little, rubbing at his ruddy cheeks before he answered. My name's Cove. I'm... You could see him hesitate, shifting his eyes to the side, and then back to you again. My dad and me, we moved here. Your guess was confirmed. So, is this your hill? He gestured with his uninjured arm to the patch of grass surrounding you, his face falling at the prospect. I can leave if it is. You can't own a hill. Why not? How could you? You just do. I had a hill back home. Well, this still isn't mine. Oh. He sat back down with a thump, resting his chin on his knees again. Curious about the strange new boy with the odd dad, you sat on the patch of grass next to him. The pure white flowers that covered this hill rocked back and forth gently as the stars twinkled above. The way they dotted the sky made them seem like flowers too. The night wind was cool as it traveled over the ocean and up the hill, chasing away the heat from the afternoon sun. Why'd your family move? A quiet hiccup escaped Cove as soon as you asked the question. Almost like they'd never stopped, his tears started up again with a vengeance. My parents, they don't want to live together with me anymore. The tears fell fast and heavy over his flushed cheeks, sticking in his dark lashes. My mom made my dad leave, and he took me with him, and now we have a house here, and I want to go home. The outburst took you off guard. By the time he was done wailing, Cove's chest was heaving with exhaustion. He sniffled and removed his glasses, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand before he put them back on again. I hate this place. I want my real life back. I want my mom. You'll like it here, you just have to get used to it. He slipped his hands underneath his glasses and pressed his fingers against his eyelids. Cove wound himself up again for another long crying fit. Sunset Bird was a nice place to live. It had a beach, playgrounds, a good school, at least you thought so. But from way off in the distance, you heard your parents. Kate!
Cove?
Kids, where did you go? Cove looked at you, tears still clinging to his cheeks. Don't tell them we're here.
I don't want
to go back to that house. I want to go home. can handle it. And even if you can't, he's your dad, right? Yeah, he is. Dusting the grass off your pants, you stood up. So you didn't come here by yourself or with a stranger. He's got to take care of you no matter what. Slowly, Cove stood up with you, still looking a little reluctant. His dad's voice rang out again. Cove, can you hear me? He looked toward the sound of his dad's voice, silent, then turned away while rubbing his not bandaged arm.
Sorry.
Sorry, I still don't want to go. You tried to convince him. Are you sure? You'll have to stay outside the whole night and sleep on wet grass. Before Cove could say anything else, you heard his dad's voice again, even closer than before. There you are, bud. The trio of parents appeared over the curve of the hill. Instantly, all their eyes landed on you, and they rushed over. Both of your moms were at your side in a split second, faces filled with worry. Kate, you're here after all. We had been at the park to check for Cove and then heard what happened earlier when you met the new neighbor. I thought you might have gone off further away. We were okay, don't worry. Thank God you're both fine. Were you two having fun out here? You looked over at Cove, who was wiggling against his dad's tight hug and pushing at his arms. He's good. I think I'm gonna marry him. You nodded, smiling slightly. Oh, that's wonderful. Finally letting go of his squirming, scowling son, Cove's dad turned to the three of you.
That's a relief.
Thanks very much for finding him. I really don't know this neighborhood. Good thing Kate knows this whole area so well. Absolutely. We should be getting home now. It's been a long day for us all. Say goodbye, Cove.
Bye.
The two of them walked off into the darkness, heading toward the neighborhood. You watched Cove's bright pink cast until it disappeared. Tell you what, we'll have a proper play date tomorrow, okay? Your new friend's dad wanted to bring him by to see you and Lizzie. How does that sound? Sounds like words.
Of course.
Sure, can I show him my stuff? Then okay. Both of your moms laughed, the sounds overlapping into a warm, familiar chorus. Mommy put her arm around your shoulder and led you toward the path. Satisfied and more than a little ready to go to bed after your long, exciting day, you followed them home. So this is where I can decide my interest level. Now, in my original playthrough, I had gone with relaxed. And I think on this playthrough I want to do nervous, but I don't think I want to do indifference. We have nervous fondness or nervous crush. And then that's love up there, which is locked. Do I want to just have a crush on him right away? I think I do. Because my first playthrough I did relaxed fondness. And so we were just friends. And I think if I do nervous crush, I'm more likely to get a lot of different options. So in this playthrough, we're just going to like him from the very beginning. So let's say ready. Begin step 1 at nervous crush. You won't be able to change it again until step 2. And I will say yes. Achievement unlocked, childlike affection. Aw. The next morning, you finished your breakfast so fast that you got a tummy ache. Your sister Lizzie had to run out earlier to go play, but you'd stayed put. Today, just like your moms had promised, Cove was coming over to hang out. Excited to see your new friend again, Kate? I'm excited, achievement unlocked, nervous. If you were going to get married, it made sense to be around each other.
How sweet.
bet the two of them are going to be great playmates.
Okay.
With that said, are you done with your breakfast? Your bowl was entirely empty, so you nodded. Good job. He should be here soon. Cleanup began, and then on cue, there was a knock. It was hesitant, like the person wasn't sure they were in the right place. Still loud, though. We need to get a more obvious doorbell. I know. Kate, could you get it? You practically leapt out of your chair on the way to the door. Hey, Letters family, thanks for having us. Mr. Holden, as your moms have called him, and his son were here. Cove looked different in the bright lighting of your living room, and when he wasn't crying. With his dad standing in front of him and Mom and Mommy behind you, you and Cove looked at each other. Pleased to see the interesting new boy again, you smiled at Cove. Cove returned it shyly. Do you want to see my room?
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Let us know if you need anything, you two. Have fun, kids.
See you.
See you later, son. Play nice. You led him to your room, puffing out your chest a little bit at the sight of your treasures. There were lots of stuffed animals, a cool bed, a window to look out. It was a great room. You hadn't had anyone to show it to in a while, but you were really proud of it. He leaned in a little closer to one of your drawings on the wall. I like this. I drew that. Cool. You smiled at him. You were proud of that particular piece of art, and you were glad he noticed it. He turned to look around the room a little more, studying the books on your desk and the pictures on the walls. You felt the atmosphere was kind of awkward. You wanted to say something, but didn't know what, so you let him keep looking. Then his eyes landed on the tiny box of beach things you'd collected tucked away by your door. He took a step towards it before hesitating and pointing at it and said, What's that? A hoard of stuff I found on the beach.
Oh.
Do you have any driftwood in there? Dragging the box into the middle of the room, you and Cove flopped down next to it. Yeah. You gestured to a piece at the bottom still covered with specks of sand.
Neat.
This is a good collection. You got the sense from the tone of his voice that he wasn't just saying it to be nice or to be like Shiloh. He actually meant it. Ah, Shiloh is coming over. Shiloh? My sister's friend. He wants to, meet you. Do I have to see him? It'll be okay, I think. Here, I found this shell in a log, and you pulled out seashell after seashell, explaining where you'd gotten each one and holding them up against the light. There were big ones, small ones, pink, purple, and orange. Most of them you washed off in the bathroom sink when you brought them home, cleaning off the sand. The collection was so huge and varied that you had lots of funny stories to tell for all of them. Apparently fascinated either by the stories or by the shells themselves, Cove listened with what looked like the full force of his attention. Like when you almost got pinched by a hermit crab while searching for shells, and after watching him scuttle back into the ocean, you found another empty shell that was almost a twin to his home. It was a new experience to be the center of such dedicated focus. For some reason, it was making your cheeks feel warm. You had never felt like this around someone before. It was kind of weird. Kids, come down to the living room. You could tell the idea was making him unhappy, but Mommy wasn't giving you much of a chance to hang around. Cove hadn't been like this meeting you. You guessed it was because you had found each other by accident, and a parent didn't make it happen. Mr. Holden must be right that telling Cove his dad was a part of that would be a bad idea. Before you knew it, you'd both been escorted downstairs and deposited in the living room, ready for Shiloh's visit. The two of you sat side by side on the floor of your home's entryway. I brought the box of shells. I want to keep looking at them. Great. Bust it open. We can keep looking while we wait for Shiloh. Cove reached in and pulled out a big orange shell. Oh. Like he hadn't spoken aloud yet, he turned it to you and held it up, his eyes shining. I think this one's the best of them. Hi, Vasco. Angry California wind ghost woke you up too early. You saw your stream and noticed you were trying to tell you something. Oh, that's nice. I hope you're doing well today. I hope you at least got a little bit of sleep. I enjoyed watching your stream last night and kind of catching up a little. Doing something a little bit different today, as you can see. I like a different one best. I can show it to you. You reached into the box to take out the one you preferred. Cove looked on with interest. The two of you were still on the floor looking through your collection of beach findings when the doorbell finally rang. Cove jumped, startled by the sound. Since the person hadn't knocked, you figured it was probably Shiloh. He knew where to look for that. Lizzie's friend? You nodded, but that didn't seem to make Cove feel better. It was already obvious that Cove didn't hide his feelings well. You could tell what he was thinking right away. Enough sleep, probably. Thanks for stopping by last night. Glad you enjoyed that weird game at least a little. This game looks cute. Haven't heard of it. Yeah, it's a game where it has 4 stages. We're in the first stage, which is childhood. They're like, I don't know, about 8 or 9. And then it has adolescence, where they're like 13, 14. Then it has teenaged, where they're about like 18. And then it has adulthood, where they're like 22. And adulthood, I think, hasn't even come out yet. This was like a Kickstarter game, and so they've been releasing it kind of piecemeal. But it's free. That's what's so cool about it. They have DLC that you can add to like pad the game and, you know, have additional stories and stuff. But the base game is free. So I was like, ooh, it's cool to support this. Yeah, so it's fun. It's a very relaxing game. And I felt like I needed some relaxation. You like that idea? Oh, that sounds cool, yeah. This isn't a good idea. I'm sorry, there's nowhere to go. He's at our door, and if you go upstairs, he'll find you. Cove glanced around the room, his eyes wide, and finally paused with his gaze locked on the back of the house. I can go out the window. He was already walking toward it. Scrambling to think of something to say, you stepped forward, then paused. Do you want to break your other arm? Even I don't jump out of any of the windows here, and this is my house. The distance from the first floor living room window wasn't far, but you could tell it made Cove nervous anyway. He touched the cast on his arm. The wind had clearly released from his sails. Poor thing. I don't want to break any more bones. I don't think anyone wants to. Yeah. But I don't want to see him. I don't know him. You comforted him. You're right. Meeting new people is really hard. I'm sorry. Thanks. Shiloh poked his head into the living room. It was impossible to know for sure if he had heard what you'd been saying or not, but you guessed that he had.
Hi.
Hi, Kate. And hi, Cove? Cove shot you an uneasy glance.
Hi.
I'm Shiloh. It's nice to meet you. Yeah. You have a lot of freckles. Right, I do. What are you guys doing? We're looking at shells.
Can I do it too?
Cove shrugged, then looked back at your box of beach findings. What about that one? The plan for the afternoon, at least as far as you were concerned, was to sit and look at beach things some more. You weren't really in the mood to do much of anything else, especially if Cove was having fun. You held out a recent find to Cove, a scallop shell that had washed up on shore. It's a pretty color, kind of like my cast. The beautiful glittering pink did look a little bit like the wrap around his arm. Pink is a nice color. Okay.
Oh?
Is it your favorite? Not really. What is? Maybe green or blue. It might be yellow. Is everyone in this game nautically themed? It looks like it. Yeah, the game takes place near the beach. So yeah, there's a lot of references to nautical stuff because the house is like right on the beach. And you actually haven't missed very much. Cove moved next door or across the street like a day ago. He's new to town. Cove is this one here in the green hair. And his parents are getting divorced. So he's sad and he didn't really want to move here. and I decided that my character has a crush on him, little childhood puppy love crush, and so that's gonna influence our interactions going forward. I'm just gonna take my sweater off because I'm getting warm. Sun's coming up finally. Oh, those are all cool.
I guess.
Not sure how to deal with the suddenly more awkward silence, you look back at your shells. Like usual, it didn't take long for Shiloh to get fidgety. Lizzie was his favorite. Without her around, Shiloh didn't seem to know what to do with himself. And Cove wasn't like your sister. He wasn't that much like you either. Is Lizzie coming back? Don't know. Where'd she go? I think she's at the beach, probably. Is she playing at her park? Cove's eyes lit up at the mention of the park, and he looked toward you. There's a park? Yep, but it's old. Can you show me? I want to go. He started getting up before you had even answered, and Shiloh jumped up beside him in excitement. Really? You do too, right, Kate? The park is fun. The park is pretty great. Yeah, it's right at the beach, so there's lots of fun stuff to do, and lots of sand. It has a jungle gym and a bunch of swings. That sounds like it could be cool. So, are we going to find Lizzie? I don't know. I never really wanted to see her. I just want to check the park out. Adrift without any direction, Shiloh finally turned to you. Okay. He perked up. Both boys wanted to go. It was only fair. After getting permission from your moms, the three of you were ready to head out. It was a short walk to the park. Lizzie had convinced your moms that it was so short she should always be allowed to walk there by herself. When you found her, she was hanging on the jungle gym, swinging back and forth. Hey, Lizzie. Her face lit up when she saw you, her big brown eyes going wide. Kate, Shiloh. Hi. She dropped to the ground and landed with a soft thud in the sand. In a split second, Shiloh had abandoned you two and scrambled over to stand by her. You were used to being left out when it was just the three of you, but now Cove was here. It was nice to have someone who stuck with you. Who's that? It's Cove. He's new.
Hi.
I remember. Hi, Cove. Welcome to my park. I love it's her park. Nobody ever comes to play here, so this is where we get together. She gestured widely with her arms as if to present the area to the newcomer. Without interrupting Lizzie's speech, Cove whispered in your ear, quiet enough that the others wouldn't overhear. I thought kids couldn't own places like parks or hills. You couldn't help but laugh a tiny bit. While Lizzie continued talking, you took the chance to kick off your shoes and wriggle your toes through the warm sand. Nice, huh? In this neighborhood, I'm the one who comes up with the ideas. You are?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I am. Who else could handle the job? Lizzie's the oldest. By a lot. My mom say that you're Kate's age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thought so. I'm still the only one in this group with double digits. What about other kids? Other kids? There aren't any. We're the only kids here, and Shiloh's just visiting from another place. Lizzie is the captain now. This is her park. Not even tourists really bring their kids here. This is the land of ancients. Be careful that the oldies don't try to steal your youth.
Oh.
For a second, it looked like he might cry again, but something in his eyes shifted and he looked back at Lizzie. What kind of old people? Like moms and dads or grandparents? Grandparents who don't have kids. They hate kids. Why? We haven't done anything. Stop saying stuff like that. You're gonna upset him. You interjected quickly, hoping Cove wouldn't start crying again. He sniffled, his forehead creasing with worry. Lizzie was staring Cove down, but Cove wasn't even looking at her anymore. He didn't seem to care she was there. He went into his own head. Shiloh was the next one to speak, completely unaware of the situation. I met Lizzie and Kate in school. You'll see tons of kids there once summer is over. I don't want to go to a new school. I don't want summer to end. Shiloh looked to the dirt. He hadn't had much luck striking up conversations with Cove, even though he's trying really hard. I like summer vacation a lot too. All the building tension in the air suddenly vanished when Lizzie laughed. At Shiloh's discomfort, at how weird she thought Cove was, at something else entirely you didn't really know, but she laughed, face scrunching up.
Okay.
Welcome to Sunset Bird Cove. Take your seat, put up your feet, and get used to it. You offered him a small smile, and that at least looked to reassure him some. For the rest of the summer, Cove was always there. You saw him more often than Shiloh, and on some days, when she was in a bad mood or busy, you even saw him more than Lizzie. He became a staple of your everyday life, the way sun and lunch and the beach were. Looking back on it years later, you would realize that you had a tiny crush on him right away, one that made you want to spend as much time with him as you did. Of course, that was only the start of things. Okay, so now what's happening, I should probably save, just in case like the game crashes or something. We'll save over here. I was doing another playthrough earlier. So this is the moment select screen, and you can pick any moment that you want in any order. And you don't even have to do them all, and then you can say, and then summer ended, and then it moves on to the next stage. Let's do Sandcastle. Cove wasn't able to do many things that summer. When you, him, and Shiloh sat out on the shoreline one bright morning, you could tell he wanted to be in the water. But there was no way he'd be swimming anytime soon, not with his cast. The waves washed a single shell to shore, glittering in blue, another reminder of the places he couldn't go. The DLC adds more it adds more scenes to each stage, so it doubles it. And apparently the DLC scenes are longer, so they say it more than doubles the size of the game. I think that I might get the DLC at some point because I really like this game and I'd like to, support the creators. There's also other DLC. Once the adulthood stage comes out, which hasn't come out yet, there are also going to be DLCs for different romantic routes. Obviously, Cove is the main person, but there are 2 other characters that you can choose to date in the adulthood stage if you get their DLC. So yeah, they have a lot of different things, which is kind of cool. And I love the art, I love the music, it's just so chill. The waves washed a single shell to shore, glittering in blue, another reminder of the places he couldn't go. From what you'd heard about Cove's old life so far, in tiny pieces and fragments, you could tell that he'd do anything to be able to get the cast off. The possibilities of what he might get up to made you anxious. You thought about how his summer last year must have been totally different from this, with his old home and his mom and dad. But now he was here, with you and Shiloh and Lizzie and everyone else, and he couldn't even go in the sea. This town wasn't bad, it had all your favorite things in it, but sitting there on the same beach you'd grown up on, you could understand that not everybody else felt the same way about Sunset Bird as you did. You watched him from the corner of your eye, quietly, and he finally said aloud what you had been pondering. I wish I could go in. The water? Yeah.
Oh.
I'm sorry, you're going to be able to do it soon. Cove only sighed in response. Apparently, soon wasn't soon enough. It's a great relaxing aesthetic. Music gives a beach vibe. The world could use more games like this, right? And it's also cool that you can customize the main character however you want. They have a customization screen, and you can choose whether you're a boy or a girl, or non-binary. You can change your hair color, eye color, whatever, and you can also change your appearance as you get older. So you can change your haircut, you can change your name even if you want to. Like maybe I go as Kate as a young child, but then later on I want to go by Caitlin or something like that. You can do that. So it offers like a very broad amount of customization, and it's pretty inclusive in that way. Gonna get a little sippity sip. Was getting the progressive contemporary gender vibe from the 2 moms and a couple other things. Yeah, the main character is 2 moms. And that's actually something that I thought was very clever, because it's like you can have the main character be any ethnicity essentially, but it's you have 2 moms, so it's like you could just be adopted. You could just be adopted if you had a mom and a dad too, but like, I don't know, it just makes sense. Cove only sighed in response. Apparently soon wasn't soon enough. It's so pretty, the ocean. And huge. There could be anything out there, like mermaids.
Yeah.
Swimming might be fun if we could, but it's not like there's anything we can do about it. Obviously not interested in hearing much more of your input on the situation, Cove turned back to the water. But as he looked away, something about Shiloh's slow, careful movements caught his eye. Hey, are you building a sandcastle? Sort of. I was only playing around a while you were talking. I'm listening. Maybe I could too. I've only ever made big piles before. It's really nothing special. I'm sure you'll be good at it right away. Well, how do you do it then? Shiloh's cheeks lit up. You could tell he was a little bit uncomfortable to have Cove's expectant stare on him. I'll play too. I love making sand stuff. Okay. He put his hands back to his seashells and sand and nodded. I don't do a lot. Here's how I like to get a house started. Shiloh, focusing more intently than you'd ever seen him, guided Cove through his process. You happily used your own method. It didn't take long for the three of you to each have humble structures prepared. That's all, kind of. You can do anything now, like make it bigger, add some seashells, carve a pretty pattern. I bet you have great ideas.
Okay.
I'm gonna make it bigger. Mine is gonna be a real castle.
Oh.
Cool, this is gonna be a house. Do you wanna build a castle? Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decided to make a mansion, clearly. Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decided to design a mansion. The better part of the next hour was spent focusing on your work. The boys were the same. Even Shiloh didn't sneak as many peeks as everyone else as he usually did. You finished shaping before either of them did, glancing up from what you built. It seemed you'd gotten done so fast because they'd already searched around for extra decorations. Shiloh had grabbed most of the really interesting stuff, and Cove had a lot of shells, but there were still options. The first thing you reached for was a green piece of sea glass. It was the best fit for your mansion, you decided. It was see-through and sparkly. So you tucked it away somewhere secure inside, barely poking out to make sure it didn't get lost. Pleased with your result, you finally took a proper look around that wasn't focused on the sand itself. Both Cove and Shiloh seemed super immersed still. You knew you could probably sneak a peek at either one's work. Check out Cove's sandcastle, of course. The castle Cove had built looked surprisingly tidy, especially for someone in a cast. He must have worked really hard. He wasn't even finished digging the huge, gaping moat in front, but it was already enormous. You got the sense from the enthusiasm he was digging with that the doctor was probably going to find a bunch of sand in the cast when he finally removed the pink plaster. The silence was then broken. What's on top of yours, Shiloh? You peeked closer and discovered something shiny sticking out of Shiloh's sand chimney. Oh, it's just a gum wrapper. It looks like smoke.
Neat.
It's good. That's smart. You should be an architect. You'd be good at it, Shiloh. Shiloh smiled without a word. And that was that for the current topic. Kate, can I see what you did? Sure. He scooted just a bit nearer and began surveying your work. All you really knew about mansions was that they were supposed to be big, so you'd gone really big. It was the size of the country club that Lizzie played golf at compared to Cove and Shiloh's buildings, probably even bigger. Shiloh quickly decided to jump in the new conversation. Hey Kate, what did you do? I made a mansion. It looks great. Your house is so big. It's not a big house. It's a mansion. Is being a house bad?
No.
No, but we each made our own place. Nobody is the same. I think we are. Cove raised an eyebrow at that. If something is the only one of that thing, that makes it special. Yeah, for sandcastles and stuff. People too. My dad always says how everybody is their own man, a real individual. I don't think I'm very special.
Why?
Why not? Nobody else is like you. Nobody else is you. Shiloh simply shook his head. I'm not different. A beat passed between the two. Cove then looked down at his own work again. Okay. He didn't seem to be bothered leaving the disagreement hanging there. Cove had other things on his mind. My dad tried to get me to make sandcastles the first time we came to this beach. I didn't want to. Cove trailed off. Again, there was another moment of silence. Shiloh shifted and opened his mouth to say something, but Cove spoke up before he could. You didn't think he noticed Shiloh was going to talk. Hey, do you know what happened when your moms met my dad, Kate? You blinked, not expecting the question. You thought hard. I wasn't there. They didn't tell me. I just remembered what happened when I met your dad. Mr. Holden had been a weird stranger then. Well, he was still kind of strange. No other parent acted like him, but you knew him better at this point. Now that you thought about it, it made a lot of sense that Cove's dad talked to him about people being unique. You were pulled from your thoughts when Cove continued. Oh, well, I was there. I don't think my mom has met your dad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she hasn't. Kate's parents and my dad met the same day I met her. I'm gonna say what happened. Shiloh frowned to himself, ducking his head. His hat cast a shadow over his face. You could tell he was upset at not being included in Cove's choice of topic. That was kind of boring for him, though. Though giving people their own turn to say the things they want is important, too. Any opinion? I'm gonna get some peanuts. I kind of feel partial to letting Cove finish his story. Yeah, the choice is definitely a little divide between the two. But I think I let Cove finish his story. Yeah. Okay. Cove's the one I like, so Shiloh could talk about stuff after Cove had a chance to share what he planned on. When we moved here, we didn't bring a lot of things with us. Only some stuff that would fit in Dad's car. We didn't even get a moving truck. I sat in there while Dad brought it all inside. I didn't want to get out because I knew Dad would make me look around the new house. I really didn't want to do that. His lips twisted in a frown as he recalled that. Then I saw your moms. They were in a car too and stopped at your house. I guess they were coming back from somewhere or something. My dad noticed. He waved his hand and then went over to the front of your house where he started talking to them. I don't know what they said. I couldn't hear it. But he couldn't see me anymore since he was looking the other way. So I opened the car door and left. I wanted to get away and went behind the houses. I found those hills there, the ones where we met for the first time. Cove nodded, then stared at you. You stared back. He didn't go on to say anything more. Is that it? Cove's brow wrinkled, like he didn't understand why you were surprised.
Huh?
That's all that happened. There was no point to that story. Why did you want to tell a story if nothing happened? It kind of didn't have a point. But that was how our parents met. I didn't make the story up. That's not really my point. You have a friend who tells stories like that sometimes? Cove just was not understanding the issue here. Shiloh's mouth twisted into a scowl of disbelief but said nothing. He probably actually had something interesting to say. Why'd you bring that up anyway? There was a slight shrug of Cove's shoulders.
Well...
I was thinking about it because of the sandcastle. It made me remember when I moved here. Dad showed me the beach first before we went back to the car to unpack. He was really excited about it for some reason. Cove's brows furrowed a little more as he quietly raked his hands through the sand. I get it. You thought maybe Mr. Holden wasn't that excited about the beach, and was instead hoping that Cove might be. But the line of conversation had come to its end. Even Cove was done with it. Some other topic had popped into his head. Shiloh fidgeting uncomfortably in the sand had made Cove aware of his presence again. They looked at each other, and you could only wonder what this might be about. Hey, Shiloh. Yeah? Why are you always turning so red, even when nothing is happening? Clearly startled, he jerked back. Neither you or Shiloh had expected that to be how he got included in the conversation again. I don't know, I guess. Okay, it's kind of weird. Cove, ruthless. Shiloh's eyes were wide with embarrassment, and his lip twitched, and he was blushing even harder than before. Maybe it wasn't only this, perhaps it was simply the last straw, but it was a big deal to Shiloh, a huge deal. He didn't look just sad, he seemed almost panicked. You weren't sure if he was about to cry or run away or what, but you soon got an answer. Why did you wear glasses? Most kids don't wear glasses, and nobody is named Cove.
Who asked you to come?
It was probably just your dad bugging Kate's family some more, because you don't have anyone else who will ever play with you. Cove blinked. The tension on the beach was suddenly uncomfortable in a way you didn't know how to even mention. It didn't seem like the kind of thing that he would get upset about, though you hadn't ever known what kind of thing would bother Shiloh. I'm sorry. Me too. I was just wondering. How to defuse this situation. I nervously messed with the sand. You picked up some sand and turned it over in your hands. There didn't seem to be much you could do to stop the fight, and you weren't sure what to do with yourself. Cove looked over at what you were doing and started building his own set of walls. Shiloh took a breath before kneeling back down to his own patch of sand. It seemed they were both decided to try playing again. You were glad for that. You all went to making more sand buildings, but the whole mood had changed. Shiloh's cheeriness was clearly gone, and Cove looked as confused as ever about why the other boy had blown up. The air stayed uncomfortable the rest of the afternoon, right up to the moment that Shiloh's mom appeared at the beach to take him home. Cove and Shiloh had mostly followed your lead and barely said a word. His mom was standing behind him. Even Shiloh's goodbye had been quiet, friendly, cheerful, but noticeably quiet. But with Shiloh gone and the sun going down, you knew it was time for you and Cove to head to your own houses. You followed him as he made his way out of the sand. The walk home was quiet. You passed by familiar landmarks, shoes thumping against the sidewalk in near-perfect unison. Cove was clearly caught up in thinking about something. Ask Cove what he's thinking. Prospect of asking made you nervous, but you did anyway. Hey, is everything, okay?
Oh.
I was just wondering. Cove fell silent for a few more seconds, and then sighed. Why'd Shiloh act like that when I said he was all red a lot? You were being rude to him. No, I wasn't. It looked like that to me, and it wasn't just saying that one thing. You're not very nice to Shiloh. I didn't mean it like that. Shiloh is kind of weird to talk to. See? That's kind of rude. I guess I can get it, why he would do that. Sometimes I get really mad too. Despite seemingly coming to a conclusion, Cove's mood was still sour. Hi, Dark Angel Master. Hey, Kate, was Shiloh telling the truth? Huh? His gaze left yours as he dug the sole of his shoe into the ground. He looked oddly vulnerable for a second. Does my dad make you hang out with me? Oh no. For those of you who don't know, Cove's dad offered us $20 to hang out with him because they were new in town and Cove didn't have any friends. So, sort of. It's a trap! I know he talks to your moms about that a lot. An uncomfortable weight settled in your chest at the question. You liked spending time with Cove. You didn't even have to think hard about it. You knew you did. But you couldn't help feeling guilty. Cove still didn't know what happened when you met Mr. Holden. You know what? I didn't take the money. So I think I can just say nobody's making me spend time with you. Tell him about his dad's bribe. I mean, I can. I actually know what happens on that because that's what I did in my first playthrough. Because my first playthrough, I actually took the money. And so, but this time I didn't, but I'll tell him. I'll tell him. We want to see him cry today. Well, remember how our parents met, how you talked about how our parents met and I didn't know what happened? Yeah. I kind of had something happen that you don't know about when I met your dad. As you struggled to find the right words, Cove looked at you passively. You wilted under his gaze, breaking eye contact. You stared at the ground. I was walking home, and your dad was sitting in front of the house. It must have been after you ran away. My moms weren't there either. I think they were looking for you. Your dad saw me. He got up and came over. Mr. Holden told me that he just moved into the house next to mine. You snuck a look at Cove. He was still listening, his expression plain as before. You paused for a moment, wondering if you should really keep going. Happy Valentine's Day! Hugs! I didn't tell Cove what happened after all? No, I'm going to tell this whole story. In for a penny, in for a pound. Even if it was supposed to be a secret, you thought Cove should still know. Your dad wanted you to have a friend, so he offered me money, $20. Cove was so still, you thought he hadn't heard you. Then his eyes widened, his mouth fell open, but no sound left him. Silence stretched between you, so tense that it was almost tangible. You shifted from one foot to another, and your hands tensed up. Cove? Instead of speaking, he closed his mouth. His eyebrows bent up, crinkling to his forehead. He looked more sad than surprised now. He was going to cry. You were certain of it. Do you see what you've done? I didn't take it. The money. I just ran away. Honest. Cove raised his hands and brought them up under his glasses. His fingers pressed over his eyes, hiding them from your sight. Then, right in the middle of the street, the tears began to fall. Hi, Super Bass. It is a letters. His shoulders shook with the force of his sobs. You could glimpse wetness through the cracks of his fingers slipping down his cheeks. You opened your mouth, but you had no idea what to say. I like pat. I'm gonna say you touched his shoulder. Awkwardly, you reached over and rested a hand on his shoulder. But Cove shook his body from side to side, rejecting your presence.
No.
But I didn't take the money! Go away! You flinched at the shout. As you stood there listening to him cry, you felt... feel concerned for him. You didn't want Cove to be this upset. You just wanted to be honest. Cove continued to weep with his face covered by his hands. Worse, his voice raised in volume. You were frozen in place. The situation felt awful. You kept feeling worse every second. You're not my mom's. You can't tell me what to do, Cove, right? I didn't do anything wrong. I was just being honest. I'm gonna say I start crying too. Welcome to the real part of relationships. People are defined by what they do at their lowest, not by what they can do at their best. Yeah. But I didn't take the money. I didn't take it. You didn't know what to do to stop Cove from crying. You began to panic. Before you realized it, your eyes were misting over. Then you were crying with him. You couldn't stop. You heard a door opening and you flinched, expecting to see one of the mean old grandparents preparing themselves to yell at you. At this hour, most people weren't around, either because they were working or down in the town, but the grandparents rarely left the house, except to complain at children making noise in the street. You didn't want Cove to have to deal with that right now. You tried to come up with something you could do for him, for the situation, for anything. But the door that stood open now didn't belong to the grandparents. To your utter surprise and relief, it was Cove's own. His dad was already home. Yeah, he didn't take the money, no, but he's in a hard place regardless, and emotions get hot right when looking for what makes things right. Yeah. As he peeked out his door, Mr. Holden momentarily looked unsure. The cool thing is that in my first playthrough, I did take the money and then also told him about it. And even that little difference has made this interaction different. Not a ton different, but a little different. The level of customization on your choices in this game is ridiculous. As he peeked out his door, Mr. Holden momentarily looked unsure. Perhaps he had suspicions on the noise outside, but wasn't entirely positive. Though a kid crying is pretty distinct, and there aren't a lot of kids. Maybe he didn't want to believe something might be wrong with his son. His face fell as he spotted the source of the commotion. It was pained and it was scared, and it reminded you of the one he had worn the first night you'd met Cove. God forbid I get sad. This chat would tell letters just to make it worse, right? The stuff you love about good visual novels, choices actually mattering. It's weird because the choices, on one hand, the choices matter because it really affects the story. But on the other hand, the choices don't matter because you can't lose the game. There are apparently no bad endings. It's just whatever choices you make influence Cove's development as a person. It doesn't affect your relationship as much. Apparently. I haven't gotten to the end of the game, so. Something you want T-Bone to see in ESO, almost every side quest has a choice tied to the end of it, and that will affect what the NPCs see you when the NPCs see you during other quests. Mr. Holden didn't go down the steps in front of his house, he just jumped right over them and stumbled into a run. He skidded to a stop before Cove, bent down on one knee, then solidly cupped Cove's teary face with his hands.
What's wrong?
Are you hurt anywhere? Cove continued to cry, unable or unwilling to cough out an explanation. Not taking his hands from Cove, Mr. Holden turned to you for explanation, his eyes wide and imploring. He wanted to know if you tried to make me hang out with him. I told him about the money. Ugh. As you spoke, Mr. Holden's chest rose when he inhaled a deep, shaky breath, culminating in a gasp at your final words.
What?
Why would you? He clamped his mouth shut, shaking his head. He faced his crying son again. No, it's my fault. I shouldn't have done something like that in the first place. He cast his eyes down, sighing. When he next spoke, it wasn't part of conversation anymore. It was barely loud enough for you to catch his words. Kate's only a kid. Tears were still streaming down Cove's face. Smiling sadly, Mr. Holden wiped Cove's cheeks with a thumb. He furrowed his brows and looked at the ground. When he next glanced up, his mouth was set with determination. Mr. Holden finally took his hands off Cove. He reached for his wallet. Confused, you stared at the little rectangle that all the adults seemed to carry in some shape or form. It had been the source of all these problems. You were sure that Cove wouldn't want to be reminded of it right now. Mr. Holden was clearly of a different mind to you. He inexplicably retrieved another $20 bill, rolled it up, and raised it to Cove's face. Cove's eyes were hidden behind the tightly clamped fingers, so Mr. Holden poked Cove's nose with the bill. Cove peeked between his hands and grunted as he saw what you had been prodded with. Even if it was surrounded by sobs, you were glad that something else had finally left Cove's mouth.
Come on.
Hey, Cove, can you stop crying? I'll give you this cash if you do. He just tries to buy everything. Oh my god. Subre says a good example is Ioki was an Aragornian who was fleeing from slave traders but got captured and sold back into slavery. When he meets another girl, Sun and Shadow, who goes through her efforts to get, including borrowing money from him to get out of slavery under the promise of freeing him, and they develop a rocky relationship as you help both sides. Depending on their choices, Ioki may stay in the region or flee entirely and leave Sun and Shadow behind. If you convinced Ioki to stay in the region, the next time you encounter Sun during a quest, Ioki will be there. Huh. So basically it's a very big game, ESO is. With a lot of moving parts. Cove dropped his hands from his face. It had already been red and wet with tears, but now his features were scrunched up in a scowl. Not for the first time, you questioned Mr. Holden's tactics. You posit that Cove's dad has low emotional intelligence. Yeah, he had to use two hands, but Cove firmly shoved his dad's own hand away. But Mr. Holden just chuckled at Cove's reaction and tossed the money aside. It unfurled as it flew through the air, rising before slowly drifting to the floor. Mr. Holden took Cove's outstretched wrists and lowered them to Cove's sides, stopping him from hiding his face once again. Cove's dad clearly wasn't going to let go. Huffing, Cove turned his whole head away, tears continuing to roll down his cheeks as he glowered at the ground. Meanwhile, you spent 6 hours last night grinding one Earthgore mask. So you have a game that has story, but then you also sometimes get stuck doing boring stuff. That's part of the reason why I like visual novels like this, because as long as it's a good story, it's not boring. You can buy a lot of cool things with that, but it can't do everything, can it? Cove didn't respond, not even to look at his father. Mr. Holden continued. Your old dad likes to make things nice for you with the money he earns, but you're smart. You know I haven't really done anything.
I'm sorry.
I still make you sad and upset, just like right now. Cove sniffed, the harsh line of his brow mellowing. Mr. Holden squeezed Cove's hands as he continued. Kate is smart too, right? Mr. Holden spoke in a soft, encouraging tone, and Cove continued to calm. You have nothing to worry about. Except for me. Mr. Holden chuckled. Cove pressed his lips together, mulling over his father's words. Though the stream of tears had eased, drops still budded in his eyes and threatened to spill out. I love you, son, so much, more than anybody else. Sometimes that makes me a little too hasty to see you happy, and I make it all worse. I really am sorry. Scrunching his eyes tight, Cove nodded. When his eyes opened again, they were red and glossy, but there were no tears left on the precipice of his lower lashes. Aside from the occasional sniff, he was mostly back to his usual self. He swallowed. The fight for the Earthcore Mash is super good and engaging, and you have to do it on hard difficulty to get the Master Drop. Yeah, nothing to worry about except me. Interesting dad strategy. Let's see if it pays off.
Okay.
Though Cove had refused to echo Mr. Holden's exact words, the sentiment seemed to be enough for his dad. He moved his hands up under Cove's armpits and hoisted Cove high into the air with a grin. Cove's hands flew to his glasses, holding them back from falling off. Cove's lips were shut tight, all betrayed by the telltale smile in his eyes that he was trying hard to hide. Mr. Holden laughed, lowering Cove so that he was securely pinned against his chest. Cove looked away, his face angled to the ground. Now that his dad could no longer see him, he was allowing himself a smile. Mr. Holden might have missed it, but you didn't. Cove wriggled, pushing a hand against his dad's shoulders. Can I go back down now?
Yeah.
Mr. Holden set Cove gently on the ground, waiting until his feet found their footing before releasing him entirely. I have to do something. Wait here. As Cove wandered away, Mr. Holden's gaze stuck to him like glue. You sighed, eyes downcast. You felt weird that you'd only been able to stand there while the event unfolded. You weren't able to fix it. I couldn't do anything. Don't worry about it, please. We don't need another tragedy today. He winked, and you weren't impressed. Hey, I mean that. The first part anyway. There's only so much you can do from trying to fix someone else's mistake. Right after Earthgore, one guy who helped us stick it out said they were going to Domin House next, which is said to be one of the hardest bosses. He smiled sincerely at you. You've done plenty for Cove. Just the fact that you were honest with him when his own dad wasn't proves it.
That's a relief.
Thanks for being such a good kid. I hope you'll keep spending time with the boy. As though the sound of his name summoned him, Cove returned, clutching the bill his dad had cast aside earlier. You cocked your head, and Cove's dad raised his eyebrows. Cove looked at the crumpled note, then walked over and held it out to you. I stopped crying, but I don't want this. You can have it. He gave you a small smile. Behind him, Mr. Holden was still watching Cove closely, clearly relieved. You shared the feeling. Cove was making peace with the deal that had happened behind his back. Should I take it or not take it? Earthgore is a lot like an aggro fight. Big war of resources in an effort to stay alive. Domin House is much more like a control deck, where you don't have to meet a stat check so much as you have to navigate Domin House puzzling spells. The issue is most of the community is throw stats, win, fight. I guess we can try taking it. You don't actually know what makes him feel better here. He said he doesn't want it, probably as a reminder of the deal, but taking it seems sketchy. I feel like... It's hard. We have one vote for take it and one vote for not taking it. I guess I'll take it, since that was more definitively stated. Gingerly, you pinched the slip of paper between your fingers and slowly took it from Cove. He continued to smile at you. Love is not wanting someone to feel better. Love is wanting to see someone happy in the end, right? Gripping the note tight, you smiled back at him. Though you struggled to find the words for the moment, you knew that this gift was more than the number of pennies it was worth at a bank. It was a sign of Cove's trust. He believed you. Thanks for this, and for feeling okay now. Cove continued to look at you softly, his eyes wide and earnest. Yeah. You considered using the money to secretly buy something nice for Cove. You'd like for him to have a little token to commemorate your friendship. That's a good use for it. Mr. Holden stood up, stretching his arms out casually. Well then, it's about time for dinner. Me and the Rugrat need to be going in. You probably should too. I bet your moms want to see you. Alright.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Have a good night, and thanks, Kate. Father and son waved at you as you turned and dashed back home, the note clenched tightly in your hand. You felt lighter. And that's Sandcastle. Any votes for the next one we do? We've got you don't usually like tattoos, but Cove's dad's manta is pretty cool. Yeah, his dad seems like a pretty cool dude who probably should have lived on the beach for a long time. Like he makes me think of like a surfer. We've got shopping, which I'm not sure if you can see. Oh yeah, you can. Shopping. Does shopping let us spend our friendship dollars? I don't know. We can find out. Come back before it gets dark, alright, sport? The familiar voice drifted across the street and drew your attention away from the snail you had been watching inch slowly across the pavement. Cove waited in front of his dad, pushing his green hair back off of his face from where the breeze was blowing over at his glasses. He looked to be paying only a mild amount of attention as he was being handed a few slips of green paper. It reminded you of when you first met Mr. Holden, although he's probably not paying Cove to be friends with himself. Cove's dad seemed to feel your gaze somehow, or maybe you made a noise because a second later his eyes were on you. He waved you over with a smile. This makes me realize we need to see Letters play Life is Strange. Oh, really? I don't know if I know that game. If it's a visual novel, though, I like visual novels. He looked happy to see you, but you still felt a little weird for getting caught. You've got to learn how to be more sneaky. You brushed your hands together to free them of the sand, then jogged over to join the two, smiling at Cove first and then his dad. In turn, Cove shuffled his feet in place as you got closer.
Kate.
Hi.
Hi.
Life is Strange is the biggest budget visual novel. Okay. It's what you call a Western-style visual novel. It's essentially a visual novel in gameplay, but the graphics are more emphasized with rendered cutscenes, etc. Okay. Is it kind of like pure visual novel, or is it like Ace Attorney where you kind of have puzzles to solve? Fully animated rather than visual style novel, but decision and plot advancement are much the same. Okay. Yeah, I think probably light puzzling, but mostly straight VN. Okay. Yeah, I think the ones that... Ace Attorney, I played through the original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney on the DS. All up until the final story, I guess, the final chapter, where it was like specifically made for the DS, because it was actually a port from Game Boy Advance, and then they re-released it for the DS, and they had an extra chapter at the end that had puzzles that took advantage of the dual screen technology, and you could like rotate objects and stuff. Oh boy, that story was too long and too hard. I never finished it. Most puzzles are super intuitive to solve and let you brute force attempts. And apparently the first episode of each is free. Okay. The best thing about this game, it's free. I got it for free on Steam. Obviously it has paid DLC, but it's still apparently a complete story without the DLC, so free is my favorite. T-Bone is starting a new job next week, so that'll help things, but the last case is definitely too long, and it's not one of the better stories in your opinion either. You're an Ace Attorney fan, yeah. But it basically like killed my interest in doing the other ones, because I really liked the first stories. And I know there are sequel games, but I've never played them. Is my Steam account the same as T-Bone's? It's not. We have separate Steam accounts. But we're part of the same household, so we can borrow each other's games. I'm just like grooving to the music. I should drink water too. Do I know about Steam sharing? I think that's the thing I just talked about, where we're both part of the same household, so we can like borrow each other's games. And as long as the other person doesn't like boot it up and start trying to play the same game, you can use it. Yeah, I have to like go to Steam. I mean, I know my Steam name is just letters yay. Dark Angel Master, we are playing Our Life, Beginnings and Always. It is a visual novel where you meet the love of your life, if you want him to be. You can actually apparently just choose to be friends the entire time, and the story still goes forward, but yeah, you meet Cove when he moves in next to you as a child, but then there are more parts of the story where you get older, and then you get older, and then you become an adult. Yeah, Our Platonic Life. You can choose to do that if you want to. There's a whole lot of choice and customization, and it's a free game on Steam. And pretty good quality, as you can see. You think you found me? I can try to fire up. Oh, Subrace has added to the friends list.
How's it going?
Shift tab to view. Shift tab? Yeah. Confirm. Cool. Now we are friends. Oh, I guess I should shift tab again to get out of here. There we go. Cove's dad says, "Good to see you again. What excitement are you up to today, Kate?" "Nothing. You toed the pavement in front of you. It would be nice to tell them about the snail you found, but you didn't know if they liked snails." After you finished answering the question, Mr. Holden's attention returned to Cove, who was preoccupied with folding the bills he had into a tiny rectangle. "Sounds fun." "Nothing. It does? You weren't sure about that." "You know, Cove was about to hit the stores near the beach. Why don't you go with him?"
Yeah.
"Yeah, you can come." "The snail line is too cute. You have died." Yeah, the kid stuff is just adorable. You immediately grinned at the idea. You hadn't been sure if you'd see Cove today, and now he was inviting you somewhere. The day couldn't get much better. "Great, I'm sure you guys will have loads of fun." Mr. Holden reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather wallet filled with money. "You found it odd, since your moms only ever seem to have cards in theirs. Here." He leaned in to pass a crisp 10 to Cove, giving him a wink and a whisper. "Get something for your friend, too." "Sure."
Good kid.
"That's my boy." "Oh, thank you." "Thank you, Super Bass. I will accept the gift." I don't know if that's showing on screen, but he just gifted me Life is Strange. Thank you so much. That's so generous. Thank you. So I might have to check that out at some point. Dark Angel says this game would just make you upset. Well, to be fair, I feel like Dark Angel sort of joined right at the dramatic part where I told him the truth about the money, which, I mean, you don't even have to. You can avoid that confrontation, it would seem, by just not telling him about it. But yeah, mostly this game is pretty relaxed and happy. The game is a ride? Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Cove's dad ruffled his son's hair as he was straightening back up, the bill in his hand still held out toward the green-haired boy. "Take care." Cove accepted the bill after a second and slipped it into his pocket. Then with one last nod to his dad, he turned and started walking. You followed after him, intrigued at the possibilities this outing might bring. Cove strayed toward the gentle tide creeping up the sand, and you fell into place beside him. It was a nice day. The sun was shining, there weren't many clouds in the sky, though the wind coming off the ocean kept it from being too hot. You took in a deep breath, enjoying the scent of salt and ocean air. Your chat won't stop talking about the beans in Life is Strange. You streamed it back in your streaming from PS4 days. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know nothing about the game, I don't think. I remember it being popular, but I don't think I saw any spoilers or anything, so that's kind of good. When you looked at Cove, he was dragging his feet through the sand a little, and you slowed down to wait for him. He searched the ground intently. Are you looking for snails? It won't let you do Life is Strange 2 as a full bundle, so you have to gift the episodes one by one. Oh. I didn't realize there was a sequel. Cove looked over at you, wrinkling his nose. Who would want something like that? I know there's a big Steam sale going on because of the Lunar New Year. So, yeah, I guess a lot of things are on sale. Aww. Thank you, Super Bass. Episode 2. Oh. I just got a message that said, success, insufficient privilege. Alright. I don't know what that means. All 4 of the non-free episodes are coming. You just have to do it one by one. If I close it, will it still be okay? Because it won't let me redeem it. I don't know if there's like a way to update Steam, but I know it has this problem, my Steam does, where it'll only let me like get one game at a time, and like if I try to get 2 games, it will be like, no, and I have to restart Steam in between. If the worst comes to worst, it'll refund you. Okay, so I'll just close the window and look at it later. Who would want something like that? You felt the urge to defend the activity you'd been indulging in only a short while ago. A lot of people. No way, they're weird, and you can't take them anywhere because they're bugs. You have to leave them alone. Cove chuckled to himself, and that ended the discussion. He can think what he wants, and you'll think your own things. You've occasionally been gifted Steam games. Steam's usually weird about it in the interface, but generally does the thing correctly. Okay. The comforting sound of the waves filled the silence with pleasant white noise, and you played a little game with yourself as you walked along, getting close to the water as possible without getting wet. It resulted in you having to run up the sand quickly when a wave rushed in more than a few times, and although Cove threw a few glances your way, he didn't say a word. Whoa! Oh, well, you can go back and forward, that's good. I accidentally hit the scroll wheel. That can allow you to go back, that's nice. You have weird problems with games that remind you of things you don't have and that you want in real life, friendships, etc. Aww. I do feel like this game is like sort of fantasy fulfillment, because I think a lot of people really want to have that close friend, or they really want to have that close relationship. And especially with the game being inclusive of different genders and stuff like that, it's supposed to be like, yeah, life isn't always easy, but this game is. Yeah, much hugs. Super Bass, I see the gifts coming up in the corner. Thank you very much. I'll definitely be sure to check out Life is Strange on a future stream. I don't know if I'm giving you guys enough notice on my Twitter. I usually just decide what I'm doing the morning I wake up and then tweet it out. I'm not sure if that's enough notice. Both episode 1s are free. Okay. Yeah, Super Bass cannot be stopped, right? So generous. Thank you so much. They were on a huge sale. That's awesome. It worked out very nicely. You have a problem deciding what game you're streaming pretty late too. You should work on that. Yeah. Life is Strange 1 is on an 80% sale. 2 was 50%. That's really good. I was looking at this one game that was like 96% off. It was a Sega Genesis game pack or something. That wasn't what it was called, but it had like, 25 or something Sega Genesis games in one package in an emulator. And I was like, ooh, that seems really good. But then I was like, even if something is on sale, if you weren't going to buy it anyway, then you're not actually saving money. So I decided not to get it. All that kind of content was sub $20. Oh, that's so good. Dude, Steam sales are awesome. Steam sales, my game collection is a combination of Steam sales and Humble Bundle stuff. I love Humble Bundle. I actually got a Humble Bundle recently that was a bunch of digital board games. It had like Pandemic and Ticket to Ride and Terraforming Mars. So I have to check those out at some point too. You can easily spend 20 hours on a single playthrough of Life 2. Ooh. Wow. So that's a lot of fun times for a small amount of money. Very good. Hashtag not sponsored. Digital board game sounds fun. You recently found an anime about Japanese high schoolers playing real German board games, and it was delightful. It was legit the heavyweight of visual novels. Life is Strange 2. Okay. I also have Tabletop Simulator. I got it for Christmas. So that has a lot of basic games that come with it. But it also has what's called the workshop, where you can like download different board games and card games and stuff to play. As well as it has DLC with official board games. A friend of mine was trying to tell me that Wingspan is a really good board game, and it has like lots of pretty bird pictures and stuff. But yeah, starting to sink in that this whole social distancing thing is probably going to be continuing for like at least another 6 months. So I should probably invest in not going insane. What do you usually do on the beach? Lots of things. I like bodyboarding and volleyball and surfing and everything and stuff. The idea of standing on a big board while the waves propelled towards shore was mystifying. I'm not allowed to surf. It looks hard. Not once you get the hang of it. I could show you sometime. Ooh. But also, I'm not supposed to surf right now because I have this. So I was right about his dad is probably a surfer and taught him. He lifts up one arm, showing the glaring pink cast wrapped around his wrist. Yeah, that's sad for him. Cove still smiled, though. You thought his nonchalant attitude toward the injury was pretty brave. I also like collecting stuff that's on the shore. Shells, sand dollars. I found a shark tooth once. You did? Cove stretched out his forefinger and thumb. You have one person that you consider a close friend, but she's from Sweden, so time zones suck. Yeah, distance, friendships, and relationships can be really, really challenging. It doesn't hurt that we live in a country where going to work is seen as more critical than caring for your health, and the country's infrastructure is so poor that even 2 weeks of downtime cripples it. But alas, that's enough politics for one stream. Yeah. It was this long. That was somehow both scary and delightful. No way. I mean it. I still have it under my bed. You'd have to remember to ask him to show it to you sometime.
So...
What about you? What do you do out here? collect stuff too. I think I'll say I like swimming. Probably. Ko's lips curled up into a small smile. Me too. It occurred to you that you hadn't been swimming in a while. There was just so much to do before school started up again, and so little time. Once you reached the shopping area, the noise level grew exponentially. No longer just waves and footsteps, but the chatter of people enjoying the lovely summer day, the call of birds trying to find bits of food left behind, and lots of salespeople trying to get attention. You sniffed the air as you walked beside Cove. You could still smell the ocean, but there were other scents now too. Pizza, pretzels, hot donuts. Whew! It's nice. It looks like we stumbled into Mario Sunshine, right? The energy surrounding the area seemed to fill you. Oh, seemed to fill you, and there was a bounce in your step as you began looking at all the familiar sights. There were so many things to do, you didn't know where to begin. You looked at Cove, hoping he was just as excited as you were. Cove was glancing from one side of the street to the other with a look in his aquamarine eyes that you couldn't quite work out. What's that? Unlike you, she has a life. Aww. I mean, I've never really liked the phrase, get a life, or, you know, I don't have a life, or stuff like that, just because even if it's not the life that you want, if you're not dead, you do have a life, and you are important. So, I hope that you are able to feel valued as a person. One more thing for my inbox. Ooh. Super Base, thank you so much. Yeah, it's not letting me accept things right now, so it's still on the first thing, the first Life is Strange 2. And I can't get past it, so. Agreed, by most people's standards, I don't have a life. I'm worried that if I, like, close Steam and reopen it, that it might quit the game. That's just future-proofing, so if nothing else, if you want to give ESO a try, you can do it alongside. Ooh! Okay. Yeah, I don't normally enjoy really open-world games because I have difficulty with decision making, and so I'm never like sure where to go. But if I'm following somebody else's lead, that could be fun. 75% on sale, no biggie. I still appreciate it, Super Base, thank you. Vasco says, by most people's standards, you don't have a life, but you're doing mostly fine. Some circumstances right now are beyond your control. Yeah. There's a zone guide to point you in directions as well. That's always helpful. Yeah. There's no zone guide to life. That's for sure. Tying that back in. You know, is my life where I thought it was going to be as a child? No. I definitely, and I know that my health problems are nothing compared, but you know, my health limited me from doing certain things, and you kind of have to you can only do what you can do, and so you kind of have to make the most of the hand you're dealt. You're on YouTube and Twitch all day, and she actually does stuff. Yeah. Life is about doing well. Oh, it's about doing well enough. Anything else is bonuses. You take care of yourself and don't harm others. If you help someone along the way, bonus. Yeah. Yeah, when I was young, I really was like, I want to change the world. You know, I felt like it was my responsibility to help improve the world in some way. And yeah, try not to compare yourself to others as much as you can, because your life is your own, and do what works for you and figure out what doesn't match your own expectations the best you can. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. What's that? Cove pointed to a large crowd of people gathered near a few tables with large, colorful umbrellas blooming from their middles. You couldn't see past the adults who were blocking the way, but you knew there must be something worth seeing. Without another word, the two of you hurried over to see what all the commotion was about. Feast your eyes on the amazing Alexander! In the center of the crowd was a man with a tall hat and a funny green coat that had 3 long tails. There was a little table next to him with a cloth hanging over it that read The Amazing Alexander in glittery golden script. Why tell people his name if it's already on a sign? Cove hummed with understanding, then turned to walk away just as the Amazing Alexander began shuffling a deck of cards. You bit your lip, reluctantly starting to follow after Cove again. You continued looking over your shoulder, however, wanting to see as much as you could before you got too far away. Hey! Not watching where you were going proved a bad idea as you bumped right into Cove. Oh, sorry. Did you want to stay or something? If that's okay. You might not think about it, but you may be all that keeps someone from going insane. Being there is something most people sell short. You live on the internet pretty much, yeah. Well, shoot, especially these days, the internet is how people socialize. I feel like people can no longer denigrate internet relationships anymore. Because it used to be like, oh, your internet friend is not your real friend, da 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 da. But it's like, well, guess what? Now everybody's friends are internet friends. You hope Alexander chooses, asks us if this was our card, and we just choose yes or no. That would be funny. He briefly lifted up his arms off his sides before returning them to place. You could have said so. With that, it began. The magic man pulled one card out of the deck, showing it to curious onlookers. It was a 4 of diamonds. Watch closely. You did, squeezing through a few of the adult onlookers to get a better view. Suddenly, the man snapped his fingers and the card just disappeared. Whoa! Cove is not impressed. The Amazing Alexander, who had earned his title, turned his head and looked directly at you. He reached out with a kind smile. What's this behind your ear? Those without power feel a need to take from others. That's why you spent 8 hours brute forcing 2 ESO dragons. Buddy wanted a mask from one. Other buddy wanted a die that asks you to do both. Tell me! This had to be going somewhere and you needed to find out. He smelled like popcorn and candy when he stepped closer. It was great. You felt a tug and he pulled the 4 of diamonds out from behind your ear. Whoa! You knew that it couldn't really have come from behind your ear, but still didn't know how he'd done it. There was a light applause from the crowd, and the man gave a deep bow. This is for you. The magician plucked a pair of balloons from a clump tied down to his table. Both were in the shape of a dolphin instead of being normal circle. And one for your friend too. Thank you for being my assistant. Wow. Now you were really grateful he chose you. After that, he went to find someone else in the crowd. Pick a card, any card. My uncle does that every time he visits. Not the balloons, the stuff with the cards. What's behind my ear? I must know! Cove spoke plainly while reaching over to take the dolphin that had been designated for him. You wondered if Cove's whole family was magic. If so, he was lucky. The crowd started to clear, and you noticed to the side there was a whole rack of brightly colored kaleidoscopes on display. Picked up a magic 8-ball. Oh. You shifted your balloon string to the other hand so you could hold it up in front of you. Then you thought of a question in your mind, shaking the ball and hearing some kind of liquid slosh around inside it. Once you had given it a good shake, you held it upright, waiting for the answer to appear. Concentrate and ask again. You wrinkled your nose and set the magic 8-ball back on the rack. It wasn't the answer you were hoping for. You followed Cove around to the other side of the stall. He went just under the awning, careful of his own floating dolphin, and you joined him. Cove secretly wizards confirmed. Did you have places like this in your old town? Cove blinked at you for a moment, and you wondered if you shouldn't have asked. You knew how much he missed that place. Not really. You nodded in understanding, looking over the stalls nearby. While Cove looked at sand pails, you were drawn to a table with colorful keychains laid out on it. They were sewn in the shape of sea creatures, and there was a plaque that read "Handmade" standing proudly in front. There were lots of different types. You saw a dolphin, a shark, a crab, a turtle. You love them? Which one should I pick up? I'm feeling partial to the turtle. I like its shell. When you were on the winning attempt of Earth War, you've been on that one boss for 2 hours. You went down because, taking 3 bosses at once is kind of hard. One person is running the bosses around while the other person revives you. Right after you back up, you left on the 3 amalgams like hasted Galta, and then the fight was on once again. Sharks need love too? Okay, I'll check out the shark. Your hand stopped on the shark, a devious smirk filled with sharp teeth on its face. You weren't supposed to go near sharks in real life, but there was something about this shark that you liked, and the fabric on its back was soft when you picked it up. You were instantly enamored. Checking the price though, your heart fell. $6. You didn't know much about money, but you thought that was a lot to spend on one thing. You rarely had more than a $5 bill to your name. Character Kate did seem excited about the shark tooth, it's true. People don't realize Heroic Leap has a range of 30 meters. Wow. Is that what you want? Huh? Oh, it's $6. I didn't bring any money.
All right.
It's fine. Hooray! We're being enthusiastic today. Cove shook the keychain from your hands, and that was that. He was holding a small yellow bucket for himself, too. It's cool. You should get it. You were a little nervous, but happy with your purchase nonetheless. It was nice of Cove's dad to let Cove buy something for you, too. After Cove paid, the two of you stepped out of the store side by side, your balloon dolphins knocking each other and spiraling around in the air. You watched Cove hold up his new pail to his face, examining it thoroughly. Hey, Cove. Yeah? You rode off to fight evil like the body of Rakdos himself gave you a second chance. That's why before COVID you enjoy your local game store. You would get there at 11 and not leave until 6. Wow. Yeah. I was excited when I moved to where I'm at now because there is a game store within walking distance. But unfortunately everything was closed by the time I moved here. They still exist, but you can't play games in there right now. You missed the game store, yeah. It was a nice place to meet people. I'd always bring my commander decks and see if anybody wanted to play. Back when we lived at the college campus, there was a game store that we went to a couple events. The only thing I didn't like was pre-releases and stuff that were like midnight. Couldn't stay up that late. I'm gonna say thank you. I'm gonna be polite. You're welcome. You hope he really knew how much you appreciated it. What? You were going to thank him for the keychain again, but instead just shook your head, smiling. Cove returned the smile with a shy one of his own. Cove looked further down the street, where different food carts were lined up. He rested his non-cast arm over his stomach, and just as he did, yours let out a light growl. You never went to midnight pre-releases. They seem popular here. No, thank you. Pre-releases tend to bring out the worst people. Oh, good. So I wasn't missing anything. That's good. You hadn't eaten since breakfast, and after all this wandering around, you were definitely ready for some lunch. Let's get some food. Yeah! You two wandered around a short while, looking at the delicacies that were available. Everything looked delicious, and as the different smells, both sweet and salty, wafted over to you, your stomach growled even louder. After passing up hot dogs, snow cones, ice cream, and pizza, you both agreed on pretzels. Cove got something sweet and cinnamony, and you... I mean... isn't cheesy pretzel the best? You can tell I don't eat sugar much, huh? You licked your lips hungrily as the vendor handed you a pretzel over, ready to take a big bite. It was covered in gooey melted cheese, just the way you liked it. Seemed odd to get a dessert pretzel before eating normal food. You found an empty table close enough to the beach that the grit of the sand made terrible noises when you dragged the chairs to sit down. These balloons are going to make it hard to eat. Cove placed his bucket on the table as he stared at his still balled up hand that was wrapped around the string. You opened your mouth to agree before an idea hit you. I know. After carefully placing your pretzel somewhere it wouldn't get sandy, you tugged the balloon dolphin out of Cove's hand and tied it in a delicate bow around his wrist.
Oh.
Cove bounced his arm up and down in place, testing the stability of your knot. After watching his balloon jostle around but remain attached, he smiled, satisfied. Can you help me too? I can't tie it to my own wrist. A sprinkle pretzel kind of sounds confusing. Yeah, a little bit weird. Like more like a donut at that point. You repeated the ritual. Cove struggled somewhat with the cast restricting his fingers on one hand and a string already tangled around the other. But the action made you feel strangely happy. You couldn't look him in the eyes.
Okay.
Okay, got it. Two of you spent a moment admiring your handiwork, both hands now free to allow easy munching on your pretzels. You bit into the doughy treat, savoring the taste on your tongue with a smile as you looked out over the ocean. That said, one of your favorite free releases, Theros, you managed to call 2 of the 3 most expensive cards in the set, Sylvan Caryatid and Nyktos. Everyone knew Thoughtseize was a top seller, while everyone else was hyped over Gods. Nice. Yeah. Now Gods are becoming like commonplace. You got the not only the Theros gods, but the new Theros gods. You got the Amonkhet gods, the War of the Spark gods, and now we have frickin' Kaldheim gods. It's like you could build a god tribal deck, but it wouldn't function very well because all the gods are kind of specific. After a time, you finished your pretzel. You were done before Cove. It was boring not having anything to do. You pulled the string out of your balloon to bring it down to your level. Then you held the dolphin in your hands, manipulating it to look like it was jumping through the air. If you turned to face toward the beach, it almost looked like it was swimming in the waves like a real dolphin. A laugh came from your side. Like the world tree. Yeah, I mean, the world tree can get a bunch of gods for you, but most people built God, Tribal, and Commander, mostly with Morpheon, the 5-color changeling legendary. Yeah, probably. We had one in our play group, but the commander was the protection from everything guy. Oh god, what was his name? I think the CMC was like red, red, white, white, green, green, blue, blue, black, black. But I can't remember the name of the card. Progenitus, yeah, that's it. That's the one. I think I only saw it played once though. Yeah, double Wooburg, exactly. Yeah, they had Progenitus in the command zone, and I don't think it... We know the guy. That is the hardest of hard casts, yeah. Yeah, but, I don't even remember how the deck really played. It was a long time ago, and I only played against it like one time. I miss playing Paper Magic, guys. I need to figure out how to get spell table games going. I did do a test, and I can connect. Your whole day is going from stream to stream. When you get bored of that, you switch to YouTube and then repeat. Okay. I'm trying to think of different things that you could possibly do. But most of them will require like subscriptions. Like, you should watch WandaVision, but then you have to wait every week for it to come out. And you have to subscribe to Disney Plus and all that stuff. MMOs are great because you can lose an entire day helping friends along the way. When you glance back at Cove, he had the remaining part of his pretzel on the wrapper and he was gripping his dolphin too. Mine's name is Sam. They're just a regular dolphin. You sighed, thinking about how great it would be to have a pet dolphin of your own. What's yours? Cove considered this question, placing the balloon against the table and resting his free arm across it in constant contemplation. It's... With a loud pop, the dolphin exploded into ribbons! No! No! Tragedy! Nothing inherently wrong with that. Maybe you can find purpose in it. It used to be the same way. Now you stream yourself and you met cool people doing that. Oh no. Oh no! For a second, all Cove did was gape in shock like you. Then his cheeks puffed up, squinting his eyes, and you saw tears start to glisten.
Kate.
No! No! Now I see why this game would be upsetting. How about a trigger warning? Kate, hit. Offer to find Alexander. Oh, the magician. He didn't like the magician, though. I'm gonna make a joke. Is his name Pop? That's a weird name for a dolphin. Cove stared down at his hands for several long minutes. I'm sorry. The smallest smiles twitched at his lips. Okay, he knows that I meant... Okay, he knows I meant well. His sister's name is Boom. You giggled. Don't forget about his brother, Kapow. Cove let out a quiet laugh of his own, before finally lifting his eyes to meet yours. The tears in his eyes had dried, and it made your smile grow even more. Okay, good. So I picked something good. I was just like, I hope this isn't mean. The passing of Cove's balloon was the last major event of your adventure. In the end, the two of you headed back late that afternoon. You separated on the beach, and while Cove went straight home with his brand new sand pail in hand, you decided to sit for a while. You don't have a lot of patience for anything else. You watched the waves and the sunset fiddling with your new keychain. Another summer day was drawing to a close. It had been great going around with Cove. You hoped to do it again, but next time you wished nothing would happen to make him cry. Right? Poor boy. Okay, we're gonna save again. Any preferences? We've got Grown Up, Long Day, or Fireflies. I mean, technically we can also end the summer and go on to the next section. But then we won't be able to go back. But I know it's getting late too. If you got, well, actually it's only 10 o'clock, but if you wanted to skip the rest of the childhood stuff, we can just go straight to adolescence, which is when they're like 13 or something. If we were gonna skip scenes, you feel like we should at least do Grown Up as a transition? One sweltering summer day, you were in your living room with Cove, listening to the sounds of birds chattering outside the window while you lay across the rug on the floor. Cove's dad had dropped him off earlier, and your moms had left the two of you, along with Lizzie, to play amongst yourselves. It had been too hot to go outside in the afternoon, at least according to Mommy, so your sister was starting to get impatient waiting for her golf class that evening. The three of you had trouble finding something fun to do. The beach and the playground were off limits, and you felt like it was too warm for anything like playing with your fuzzy toy animals. Then suddenly, a light came to Lizzie's big brown eyes, and her smile spread wide across her face. Having an idea gave her a new wave of energy. Since we're stuck inside, we should be adults. They don't play outdoors anyways. They're always inside and telling everybody they're too busy to play.
Why?
Duh.
I said why, and it'll be fun, duh. What do they do inside that we don't, besides use the phone a lot? Excluding a small huff. Or, I feel like that's the wrong word. Maybe exuding? A small huff. Lizzie decided to ignore Cove.
What do you think?
Kate, what do you think? Do you want to? Let's play Cove's dad and solve problems with money. Exactly. I don't know. Please, Kate, when have I ever had a bad idea? Whenever we play with you. I wasn't asking you. Fine, whatever. Play by yourself, just don't be loud. Me and Cove will do it by ourselves. It's decided. He looked back at you regretfully.
Yes.
I guess. How did Cove get roped into this? Now go on. Nodding goodbye to the two of them, you trailed off to find something else to do. Like you promised, Cove stayed put with Lizzie for the next couple of hours while you... I'm gonna read a book. You can hear them talking as you sat with a book by the window. You opened the picture book in your lap and immediately got lost in the story. It was about a little donkey who grew up on a farm, making friends with all the animals and pretending to be like them. You liked the part where she swam around in the pond with the ducks. It always made you laugh. You finished that book and went to get another, but before you could choose one, you noticed that Lizzie and Cove's voices were getting much louder. Curious about what was happening, you craned your neck to hear them better. At first, you mostly only picked up on Lizzie's high-pitched shouting, giving orders, telling Cove what to do, yelling about sports and the Olympics. That was pretty typical for Lizzie, so there was nothing new there, but then you started hearing Cove more and more as time went on. It sounded like they weren't having a very good time. I feel like you stayed put is kind of the no in this situation. We're gonna say yes. You went to see what was going on. You abandoned your cozy reading spot to go check what was happening with them. Are you okay in here? From up close, you could see that your sister was red-faced and pouting, while Cove mostly just looked confused. Neither one paid you mind. That's rude, Lizzie. Shut up, Cove. You're being unreasonable. I don't get what you want. This game doesn't make sense. It does. You have to be realistic. I said that. But you're not. The argument was so high-strung that it was making you a little bit uncomfortable. You had no idea what to do to make them stop at this point. It seemed like the two of them would just keep working each other up as long as they could. Had the two of them been arguing like this the whole time? So fun fact, on my first playthrough, I actually played along with them. Lizzie is absolutely in the wrong. Thankfully, like a greeting card angel, Mom walked into the room. Lizzie rushed to her, hanging onto the hem of her shirt and poking out her tongue at Cove. Lizzie, Kate, it's time to get ready to go.
You alright with that?
Sorry you have to leave already, Cove. Their mommy said that she'll walk you home so you won't be left in the cold. Cove was still glaring at Lizzie, his face flushed red with anger. I can go by myself. But...
Bye.
Bye, Kate. There was still a harsh edge to the brief farewell, but you knew it wasn't you he was mad at. Without giving Mom a chance to stop him, Cove stood up and stalked out of the room, shoulders drawn tight. Worried, Mom went to look down at you and Lizzie. You two were playing nice with our new friend, weren't you? I'll tell the truth. They were fighting, Cove and Lizzie, for the whole time. Your sister's jaw dropped, looking betrayed, as Mom put both hands on her hips. Elizabeth! I told you to be kind to him. He's having a hard time right now. That's why you play fighting games, great in small doses, and no one game session is the same. I used to play Super Smash Brothers before my hands got screwed up, but now it's like I can't play super controller heavy games for like long periods of time, and so it's like I can't practice enough to get good. It's okay though. I told you to be kind to him. He's having a hard time right now. Lizzie's mouth closed back up, replaced by a tiny frown. That's one of the things that's nice about Twitch is that you can watch people play games that you would never play yourself. Either because you can't or, you know, whatever. I know, I tried, but he was... No buts. We both know that you can show someone a great time when you put your mind to it. We're going to apologize to Cove and his dad over the phone when he gets home from work tonight. Lizzie hung her head, dragging a foot across the ground in front of her. Okay, Mom. Good girl. You watch a lot of games you would never play, but you're still interested in, for sure. I was being a kind, a rude kind. Is that not what Mom meant? There's a thing. While time is nice in MMO, ESO rewards you for just being there. If you do your daily writs, you can get crafting materials they sell for a ton, that otherwise might not exist if not for you. Alright, we better get a move on.
Let's go.
Let's go, kids. Nolani, where did you leave the car keys? Mom hustled you out of the door, and you noticed during the car ride to golf practice that Lizzie was quieter than usual. She was usually the first one to request which music to listen to in the car, but she didn't say a thing. Your parents noticed she wasn't in a mood to be bothered. They gave her space, and Mommy just asked you what you would like to listen to. I picked my favorite song. Eventually, Lizzie came around and started singing along with you. You both knew all the words, and your moms even sang along too. When the car ride was over, you spent the twilight hour watching Lizzie hit things with other girls her age. You didn't know much about golf, but you could tell she really liked it, so you sat with your moms and tried to puzzle it out. It was nice sitting outside after being cooped up in the house all day, and you stretched out your legs to let the last few minutes of sun warm your skin. When the sun was finally out of sight, dipping below the horizon, you all got ready to leave. Instead of going straight home, your moms took the family out to dinner. You went to a restaurant you'd all been going to ever since you could remember. Earlier, you'd only caught the tail end of your sister's argument with Cove, but you could tell that all this helped Lizzie to be less angry. Most easier tier dungeons take about the time of a fighting game match. Medium dungeons compared to an MTG game. When you say 6 hours, you were grinding some of the hardest content in the entire game. Okay, so it's a nice variety. The car ride home was quiet, with only the radio providing escape from the silence. Lizzie had been in better spirits now, but the closer you got to your neighborhood, the more she wiggled in her seat and frowned out of the window. She knew what was coming when you all got back home. Clearly, she was dreading it. Soon enough, Mom was turning onto your street, then reversing into the driveway. Once she cut the ignition, it was dead silent. No one spoke, only unbuckled their seatbelts and opened their doors. Lizzie was the last one out. Once everyone was inside and done taking off their shoes, she propped her hands on her hips.
So,
Now then, Mr. Holden's car is in his driveway, so he should be back from work. That's good news, isn't it, Elizabeth? You and Cove can hash things out before the day is done. Lizzie didn't complain or put up a fight. Her head ducked so she wouldn't have to meet anyone's eyes. She nodded once. Good, let's move this to the kitchen. Parenting. Mom went over to the house phone, the rest of you following behind her. Mommy put a gentle hand on Lizzie's shoulder as they walked side by side. You watched them from the back. This was only happening because you told on Lizzie. It was her fault for doing it in the first place. You hadn't done anything wrong by telling the truth. It wasn't like Lizzie was going to say it on her own. The four of you stood around the kitchen in a lopsided square. All eyes were on Lizzie, who kept her gaze on her feet. You remember the number for Cove's house, don't you, honey? Lizzie jerked her head in another nod, sullen. Without further prompting, she stepped forward and she began to dial. Mom reached over and pressed the button on a base. Suddenly you could hear the phone ringing. She had turned on speaker. The phone rang a couple of times, then stopped. Mr. Holden's warm voice came through the other end. Evening, Holden residence. Lizzie looked over at Mommy, unsure. She nodded encouragingly. Hi, Mr. Holden. It's, Lizzie. Can I talk to Cove?
Absolutely.
Lizzie letters? What a surprise. But of course you can say hey to the boy. He sounded cheery as usual, though definitely meant it when he said it was a surprise. You thought hard, and you were sure that your sister had never called Cove's house before. Mom spoke up before Mr. Holden or Lizzie could say anything more. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her lips pursed. Hi, Cliff, Nolani, Kate. Hi, Cliff. Nolani, Kate, and I are here too. Good evening. We're sorry to bother you so late. I spoke up to say hello too. Hi. The gang's all here, huh? Is something the matter? So what are you doing today? You're not in the mood to commit to a dungeon. You're just going around digging buried treasure and collecting resources for later. His voice grew a bit concerned. Mommy was quick to reassure him. No, well, yes, but it's going to be okay. Lizzie and Cove got into a bit of a fight today. We're hoping the two of them could talk and make up. Is this a good time for you and Cove?
What?
Fight? Cove didn't tell me anything about that when I came home. It does explain the funk he's been in tonight. He chuckled lightly. Despite that, it didn't seem like he really thought it was funny. Anyway, it's good. You didn't catch us at a bad time. I'll go grab him for you. Buried treasure, actual use of time. You're very picky about the games you play. There's some shuffling on the other end. He must not have gone far because you could still hear him calling out. I tend to be very picky about games too. Like, I don't play a whole lot of games, but when I do, I'll sink a lot of time into it. Like, if I find a game I like, I'll just play that. You guys know this. You've seen it with Magic Arena, so. He must not have gone far because you could still hear him calling out. Cove, there's someone on the phone for you. After a beat of silence, there was more muffled talking from Cove's dad. Come on, bud. Lizzie called just so she could talk to you. Kate's on the other end listening too. Don't you want to say hi? Took a bit of back and forth. The conversation seemed one-sided since you couldn't hear Cove properly. Eventually, Cove took the phone from his dad.
Hi.
Hey, it's Lizzie. Plus, we can eventually start a guild called Off-Meta Adventurers. I like it. Adventurers? Hey, it's Lizzie. Yeah, I know, Dad told me. Cove's tone was defensive. Lizzie turned to Mom, scowling. One stern look from her, though, and Lizzie turned away.
Sorry.
I just called to say I'm sorry for not playing nice with you today. I won't do it again. Lizzie's eyes were downcast, her voice low. You could tell she felt uncomfortable apologizing to Cove in front of everyone. She was still being genuine about feeling bad. Cove must have realized that too, because he sighed quietly. Okay, I guess I'm sorry too. A sense of relief washed over everyone at his acceptance of the apology. Mom uncrossed her arms, while Mommy's shoulders relaxed. Lizzie's eyebrows raised up. You wondered if she thought that he'd refuse her apology. Dad, can I get off the phone now? You couldn't see him, but it was obvious Cove felt awkward about the situation. He had come off uncomfortable the entire time, really. Yeah, you could go back to your room if you want. Be sure to say goodbye first, though. Most of the materials you're gathering at the moment will one day go to making someone's Law of Julianos robes, since you could do that for people. Oh, like a tailor. Maybe a magical tailor. Bye, Lizzie. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Kate. You perked up at the mention of your name. You smiled, even if you couldn't see it. Bye, Cove. With that, Cove must have handed the phone to his dad and left, since Mr. Holden spoke up.
That's a relief.
All's well that ends well, as they say. Thanks for arranging this. I'm sure he appreciates it. As Mom replied, Lizzie tugged on Mommy's hand to catch her attention. Can I go now, too?
Good job.
Sure, sweetie. Thanks very much for apologizing to Cove. Mom flashed a brief smile at Lizzie and nodded her agreement. Given permission to leave, Lizzie scurried off toward the stairs. She seemed to be feeling much better with the incident behind her. Mom and Mommy returned to the phone, taking it off speaker. They continued talking to Mr. Holden. You couldn't tell what about. You were glad that was the end of it all. Lizzie and Cove might not get along, and probably still won't, but they weren't mad at each other anymore. Mom and Mommy weren't upset either. Everything was finally back to normal. With that thought, you retreated to your own room with a spring in your step. Lizzie letters, yeah. Lizzie letters and Kate letters. We'll hop into the long day. It was another scorching summer day, the kind where no sooner had you finished one cup of water, you were already filling it up again. Everyone else had something on, so the afternoon it was just you and Shiloh. This didn't happen much, especially since Cove had arrived. Without Lizzie around, Shiloh looked to you for all the answers. It made you feel... nothing, really. Shiloh went along with whatever you wanted, so he wasn't a bother, but he also wasn't much fun. You drained yet another drink and frowned at the empty vessel. Your thirst was gone, but you still craved something icy cold and refreshing, something sweet. Something like... an ice cream cone. Nothing beats a classic creamy scoop of ice cream on a date like this. There was nothing like that to be found at home. You knew that without needing to look. Your mom didn't keep sweets in the house. Outside, there were plenty of places where such goodies could be obtained, but they were shops and demanded payment in exchange for their products. You sighed. As much as you really wanted the treat, it wasn't going to happen. What's wrong? I want an ice cream cone. Shiloh, who'd been draped over the sofa, perked up.
Yeah.
That sounds good. We don't have any here, and I don't have any money. Oh, let me check if I have any. Shiloh rummaged in his backpack and proudly produced an assortment of coins, plus one stray button. You set the button aside and counted the coins in neat piles. Just over $1. You announced this to Shiloh. He'd almost certainly come to the same conclusion, but he'd been watching you expectantly. It's not enough. I'm sorry. We'll need to find some more. Okay. The two of you lifted couch cushions, stuck tiny hands down deep crevices in the sofa and under furniture, and scoured the back of drawers. Most of what you found was useless or gross, bent paper clips, fluffy wisps of dust or sandy crumbs, but every so often, one of you would strike silver or bronze and add it to the growing pile of coins. Dusty and disheveled from checking every room and squinting into every tiny nook, the two of you finished pooling your finds. Shiloh held his breath as you counted the coins once again. And so the two children robbed a bank for ice cream, right? $2.53 and 2 buttons. You didn't know when the second button had decided to join the party, but you were too pleased with your successful haul to throw it out. Is that enough? You figured he knew the answer without looking to you for confirmation, but the thrill of your success and the reward that would follow canceled out any other feelings you might have had about that. Yeah! You could now afford something at the shops. Just one thing, but it was infinitely better than none. Shiloh clapped his hands. Yay! The two of you dashed outside. The promise of sugar buoyed you on to destination where, breathless but happy, you stared at the overwhelming number of options. You knew what you wanted, but it wasn't just you who'd contributed to the funds to get the treat. He seemed to notice your pause. Are you getting an ice cream cone? Your father named Numbers, right? Do you remember when I did the Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu playthrough, and my rival was named Numbers Boo? I enjoyed that joke. Shiloh asked as though he was entirely separate from the decision, rather than someone with a stake in the outcome. Do you mind? Shiloh cocked his head to the side. It was your idea, you should choose. Forgot about numbers, boo. Try to get something you both wanted anyway. It wasn't fair for the only one to decide when he'd been a main factor in making this happen. Some of the money came directly from his backpack. What do you like? All of them. They're so good. You pressed further. But what do you really like? Popsicles or ice creams? Which is your favorite? Aw, it's so hard to pick. I don't know. Frustrated, you cut to the heart of the matter. You want me to choose? Yeah. And that was that. You got the dessert you wanted originally and hoped Shiloh would actually like it too. Finally, the reward for all your hard work was in your hands. You laughed at the soft ice cream and the sweetness perked you up. You held it out to Shiloh so he could take a turn and he shook his head. You can finish it. He didn't want any? After you helped to get it? That was weird.
It's okay.
You want it more than I do, and I'm really happy that we got to play it today. You finish it. Well, it wasn't worth arguing further. The frozen treat was being worn away by the sun, starting to trickle dangerously towards your fingers. If you waited much longer, neither of you would be getting it to eat it. All right, thanks. The two of you began to head back home as you ate. You offered the treat once more to Shiloh, but he refused again. You walked side by side on the shore in silence, but your thoughts kept drifting to the boy beside you. Why didn't he speak up for himself? It was almost as if Shiloh didn't know how to say what he felt, or was too afraid to. Figure's his problem. Shiloh was the only person who acted that way around you, so it was him rather than something wrong with you. Letters, numbers, letters. You asked him about it. You could ask him about it, but if he couldn't give an opinion on something like what treat to get, then he wasn't going to open up about this. Shiloh made you unsure about setting a label on the experiences spending the afternoon with just him. There had been good times, and there had been confusing ones. You were positive one thing at least, the treat was delicious, and that was nice. Sun was low on the horizon as you returned to your neighborhood. There you spotted two very familiar figures up ahead, Lizzie and Cove. You opened your mouth to make your presence known to them, just as you saw tears on Cove's face. You walked straight over, Shiloh at your heels. Once there, you... Well, considering what happened before, I'm going to accuse Lizzie of causing trouble. You don't know what unfolded, but you suspected it had something to do with your big sister. What'd you do now, Lizzie?
Hey!
It wasn't me! The arbiter in the disagreements between letters and numbers must be like hieroglyphics, meh. Right? There was no guilt in her expression, only indignation, but you looked to Cove for confirmation. Cove bit his lip, smiling, but shook his head. He wiped his face before speaking. It wasn't her.
Wait.
I got yelled at! He took a deep, steadying breath. Some grandparents got mad at me. Aw, sorry. Lizzie jerked her head in the direction of a nearby house. Your heart sunk. You knew exactly what had happened. Every year, the same mean old couple rented out that condo for the summer. You, Lizzie, and Shiloh knew to stay away from them, but Cove couldn't have. They're like that with everyone. Even your mom struggled to find anything nice to say about them, but the elderly pair particularly took offense to kids. It didn't matter if they were really nice, like Cove. Yeah, Lizzie said. It was the olds are attacking the youths. Lizzie drew herself up at that. She looked pointedly in your direction. I was helping. That's cool. Is there anything I can do?
No.
I'm just gonna stay away. Or you can teach them a lesson. There was a devilish glint in her eyes. What? You could ding-dong ditch them. Go ring the doorbell and run. It'll be great because they're so slow. They'll never catch you. That's dumb. I don't want to go near them ever again.
I'm just saying that because you're a chicken.
Wow, she acted out that whole line. Okay. Karma, purple tear sash of Mother Sorrow, divine trait, that's a perfect roll. Physically cannot drop better. Nice. Cove glared but didn't take the bait. Lizzie turned to you. You're not a chicken, are you? Yeah, cluck cluck. She can't tease you about being a chicken if you are in fact a chicken. Hunched over, you folded your arms to form wings and bat them up and down. Buck 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 ah! For once, your sister seemed at a loss, but didn't take long for her to regain her usual confidence. Got a Back to the Future crisis on our hands. What did she call Cove? So you admit it. You continue to flap your arm wings as you circle your sister, clucking all the while. There's no shame in a chicken being a chicken.
Yeah.
You're chicken. Things were not going the way Lizzie expected. She fought against a laugh and looked for a way to restore her serious authority. You and Cove are both little chickens. Baka. Cove folded his arms through, though the one with the cast wasn't as tightly tucked down, and joined you in cheeping around. It was hard to cluck through the giggles that rose up when you saw him imitating a chicken, but you still both gave a first-class performance. The cove to the old couple's condo flung open to reveal one of the culprits behind Cove's tears. You froze, wings raised. Can't you let anyone have a bit of peace and quiet? You must not be a fan of theater or farm animals, as well as kids. That was the only explanation for his outburst, which was far louder than anything you and Cove had done. Go on, beat it! It was distinctly unfair, but Cove's lip was trembling and you thought it was best to heed his command. Lizzie took off, with Shiloh immediately trailing after her without much as a glance back in your direction. So much for your friendship. You waved your arm at Cove, summoning him to follow you, and ran after Lizzie. The old man's hollers propelled you all from the street to the sanctity of the hill. Only once you were safe did you notice the stitch in your chest and the ache of your legs. You flopped down, the blades of grass tickling your face. Lizzie, who had taken the lead in the end, was already lazing on the ground. The four of you took a moment to catch your breath and enjoy the feeling of cool grass against your skin.
Cove.
Cove lifted his head. I told you there were mean grandparents around here. Cove rolled his eyes, then decided this wasn't dismissive enough, and rolled his whole body away from your sister. Lizzie chose to ignore his response and started chatting to Shiloh, who eagerly joined in the conversation. In the back of your mind, you knew you'd always be second fiddle again to Shiloh once Lizzie came around. It always went like that. And it was fine. Shiloh could prefer Lizzie as much as he wanted to. There were other things to attend to anyway. You wriggled closer to Cove. He calmed down, for the most part, and was inspecting a flower. His fingers pinched the stem and tilted the white petals toward him. That's a poppy. Cove glanced at you in acknowledgement, then back to the flower. And the type of poppies on this hill have the name white linen poppy, Mom told me. He quirked a smile. That's funny. He ran a finger around the edge of the petals. Doesn't feel like cloth. You need a lot of them to make anything. Remember this and plan the old man's downfall in your own future letters. We can't say old, we have to say boomer. I mean, I guess he would technically be a boomer. This is... Well, no. Because this is set in, like, 2006 or something. So the phrase boomer didn't really exist yet. Because the final chapter of the story, the adulthood one, is in 2021. So this is in the past, technically. You need a lot of them to make anything. He nodded and released the delicate plant, evaluation complete. This is my favorite kind of flower, but I didn't know what it was called. Thanks. Whoa! I mean... Yeah, choices! I'm gonna say orchids. This must be relevant, right? Maybe he'll get me flowers someday if we do a romance thing. Type your own answer. Yeah, I'm gonna say orchids are the most special. Those flowers are super fancy, come in all sorts of colors and stuff. Some even pretend to be like bugs. This is all true. They do? Yeah, they trick real bugs by looking like one. Wow, you know everything. Not everything, but thanks. You're welcome. Woo! He stopped the conversation, suddenly shy. You moved onto your back with a small smile, looked at the darkening sky. The blanket of clouds reminded you of a thick throw you curled under on cold, raining days. You wondered if the clouds would be as soft. They lazily floated on by, splitting from each other, merging and morphing into new shapes. Baby boomer has existed since the early 90s, so perhaps even the 80s. It marks the baby boom of 1953, which was the single largest spike of children born relatives to human population in the world's history. Right, but wouldn't a grandparent in like 2006 be the generation before the boomers? Or am I doing the math incorrectly? Plus, the okay boomer thing is only a few years older. But yeah, I guess people were referred to as boomers even back then. Calling people boomer, especially as a derogatory term, developed during recent years under the influence of social media. Yeah, term boomer wasn't used as an insult until recently. And I feel like that's because, you know, we had to wait to see what they did, and it's like, yeah, your entire generation is kind of a failure. Congrats. Oh boy. It's okay though. Things are gonna get better and we're gonna fix things. And I also feel like, yeah, congrats, you blew it. Boomers as a generation failed. What's funny is it's used as a response to millennials are childish, yeah. But there were also good people in the boomer set. They just didn't succeed. The losers succeeded. But we're gonna make things better, don't worry. They lazily floated on by, splitting from each other, merging and morphing into new shapes. Saw cloud shapes. Super. You saw a dolphin. You saw a dolphin leaping through the sky. You nudged Cove and pointed to it. Look, a dolphin. Cove joined you in gazing skywards. Yeah, I see it. Really? No, but I like dolphins. Hey, he chuckled at your reaction. Adorable. Will this game handle the pandemic? I don't know. I would assume not. Is this game really going to leave us hanging? What happened with Sam, the balloon who was just a dolphin? I think that was, I just took it home and it probably deflated at some point. I know in my previous playthrough, I gave my balloon to him. I gave my balloon to Cove. And believe it or not, telling a joke actually went over better. All the sun's light faded from the sky and the moon rose higher. Lizzie got to her feet, dusting strands of grass from her bare legs, and surveyed her surroundings. The ocean, visible from the crest on the hill, beckoned with every sweep of the tide. Let's go to the beach! There was no argument for the other two. Shiloh was still Shiloh, and Cove would never say no to going to the shore. He was a child of the sea. You... I'm gonna object to the plan. I don't want to. Tough, it's 3 against 1, and it was my good idea. Sighing, you charged after the others. You have to go, sorry. Boomer task failed successfully, right? You stepped onto the sand for the second time that day, but it felt different at night. The beach was nearly quiet at this hour. Abandoned sandcastles and footsteps in the sand, too big to belong to any of you, were the only indication of how busy it had been only hours earlier. The 4 of you kicked your shoes off and removed socks and walked through the water's edge. The waves tickled your feet. I wonder what would happen if you tried to take a bath in the ocean with shampoo and everything. That would be bad for the fish.
Jeez.
I didn't say anyone would do it. Jeez, you don't have to be serious about everything. You're the one who asked what would happen. That is what would happen. It would hurt the fishes. I like bubble baths at home. They're a lot of fun. Me too. Bubble baths are luxurious. You've never heard Lizzie use that word before. Mommy loves to have bubbles in her bath. She'll turn the lights off and have candles. I'm gonna do that next time. Hey, when's your mom coming to pick you up anyway? Not for a while. She's busy. What about your dad? How come you never talk about him? Nobody does. Don't you know you're not supposed to ask somebody something like that? Why would somebody want to talk about something they never talk about? You kept your eyes on the ground, watching your toes get swallowed up by waves. Even if Shiloh never seems upset when this topic came up, it made you feel awkward just for having both of your moms. It's okay. I'm like Lizzie and Kate. I don't have a dad, but I don't have 2 moms. I just have 1. She's really great. Oh, sorry. I only have 1 now, too. My mom isn't here. She's back home. It's just my dad with me.
Sorry.
Oh, I never had a dad or anything, so I don't feel bad. It's really sad that your mom is gone. Cove nodded. Even if they're all different, our parents are good in their own ways. Yeah. Cove couldn't muster a response. You don't think he truly disagreed, though. The silence broke with a splash as Lizzie kicked in your direction. Cold water and sodden sand splattered against your legs. Lizzie giggled, foot still outstretched from the kick. Cove joined in, striking the incoming waves to make a splash of his own. Shiloh scurried out of Cove's spray zone with a grin. Bleh. Aw, right? You made a run for it. You were already too dirty and wet for comfort. None of that mattered. Nothing that happened there would feel as good as getting dry. You got out of the water before anyone could catch you again. Perching on a rock, you scraped the wet sand from your legs as you watched the others. The sand came away in thick chunks at first, like clay. Where it had been thinner, it already dried and clung to your skin. Cove and Lizzie were relentless, while Shiloh mostly just dodged. Ah! Shiloh's brief exclamation was drowned out by the biggest splash yet, causing him to fall face first onto the ground. That would have been bad enough without the wave that followed, cascading over his prone body. Shiloh sat up, shaking his head like a dog coming in from the rain, as you all hurried over to check on him. His hair was plastered to his head, and his soaked clothes clung. If there was any part of him that was still dry, you couldn't see it. That was crazy. Are you okay? Yeah, my foot got stuck and I fell over.
You dumbo.
Way to go, Shiloh, you dumbo. You offered him some help up. Shiloh didn't take your outstretched hand. After a moment, you dropped it. Lizzie was too busy snickering to notice and held out her hand to Shiloh, too. He reached over and took it. Slowly, he started to pull himself up from the ground. Then he slipped on the slick sand, dragging him and Lizzie down just in time for another wave to hit. The water rolled over them. Sorry. What were the odds of that happening twice in a row? You thought they must be low, but there's no way Shiloh would do something like that on purpose and then pretend it was an accident, especially not to Lizzie. Even if your relationship with Shiloh felt unclear, he did at least like her a lot. Lizzie was his favorite, right? Smiling boldly, Lizzie extracted herself from the ground and wiped a streak of sand from her cheek. She didn't intend to let this embarrass her. Shiloh got up again as well, this time without incident. He still looked like a drowned puppy, but that didn't stop Cove laughing at the two of them. With that, it was time to call it a day. How much sand did she splash you with? It sounded like you were buried, right? The four of you drudgingly made your way back home, leaving a trail of wet footsteps and sand in your wake as damp clothes weighed the group down. Your moms were outside, chatting to Cove's dad. We're back. Your mom's faces fell as they took the state you were all in, ranging from messy to soaked. Elizabeth, is that all you have to say for yourself? You brought half the beach back with you. They certainly did. What's Marigold going to do when she comes to get Shiloh? Is this how you want him to be for the long drive home, cold and filthy? Lizzie's expression turned sulky over the scolding. Being the oldest could be fun, but it also meant she was the first to get in trouble when something went wrong. Mr. Holden, on the other hand, chuckled as he ruffled Cove's matted hair. You've been out making memories, bucko. Glad you had a good time with your friends. Cove used his slightly moist cast arm to push his dad off. Mr. Holden's eyes widened when he noticed even that had gotten wet. Now he was worried too. I think they could have found a less risky way to spend time and had just as much fun. That might be right. Kids, what can you do? Come on, Cove, let's get you cleaned up and dried off. We wouldn't want that cast to have to be reset. Cove winced at the thought.
Okay.
That a boy. Mr. Holden casually bent down and plucked Cove up from off the ground, ultimately holding Cove against his chest. Sand was already transferring from Cove onto him, but that didn't seem to bother Mr. Holden. Cove protested being carried, but only got a reassuring pat on the back for his trouble.
Take care.
Good night, Cove. Thank you for the talk, Cliff. Night, Letters family, and Shiloh too. Resigned to his fate, Cove twisted his body in his dad's arms in order to turn around and wave goodbye. Smiling, you returned a tiny wave of your own.
Fine.
Well, we'd better do what we can to fix you guys up too. Come on, everybody inside. I want you to march straight to the downstairs bathroom. Yes, Mom. Okay, Lizzie's mom. Don't worry about stopping to wipe your feet on the mat this time. That won't do much good tonight. Sitting on an old beach towel your mommy had found, you waited in the hall. Until you were less sandy, you weren't allowed to go to your room or walk around the house. But you did get to eat a sandwich for dinner there. It felt like an indoor picnic. It had been decided Shiloh would wash first and borrow some of your clothes. He was already finished and packed away in his mom's car. Miss Fields had come to collect him a little while ago. It's been a funny experience seeing him without the hat on for once. Lizzie, being much more soaked than you, got in the tub next. It wasn't a bubble bath as she had hoped. This was a no fun allowed cleanup session. At least that's what she claimed. This game seems like it has very high highs and very low lows. Miss Fields, did she bring cookies, right? Not much longer to be your turn. When the bath was done, you'd have to go right to bed. After a day like this, though, you were glad there weren't going to be any further events. Drifting off to sleep sounded like a great idea. Alright, let's hop into the last chapter. Tonight we're going to catch fireflies. At this blunt declaration from your sister, you looked up from your macaroni and cheese dinner. Actually, I'm going to say it really quick. Fireflies were a familiar sight over the summer, coming out on warm nights to dance through the sky. Tonight was particularly balmy. You knew there were bound to be a ton of them around. Oh, you are you? Yeah! Don't you dare interrupt the sanctity of mac and cheese, Lizzie Letters. Catching fireflies was a great way to spend a summer evening, and you could already envision the little lightning bugs drifting through the darkened sky. That's a good idea, Lizzie. Can't we, Mrs. Letters? Shiloh tapped his fork against the table excitedly, his face lighting up as he looked at Lizzie. It was unusual for Shiloh to still be here. Like always, his mom had to bring him over really early in the morning before her job started. But normally she would have picked him up by now. She called before dinner to let your moms know she'd be late. You didn't hear why. Probably more work things. You thought maybe getting to hang out with Shiloh for longer is what made Lizzie want to keep running around outside. Staying home and watching TV was never an option for her with guests over. That's why you were pretty sure she'd get your moms to agree. Well, it's already so dark out there. Lizzie gave Mom the best puppy dog eyes she could, slowly spooning mac and cheese into her mouth while you waited for their response.
There.
Let them go. Nights like this don't happen every day. Your parents exchanged a look, then Mom eventually sighed and nodded back. Yes! Along with Lizzie's cheers, you threw your arms up in triumph, but waited until you'd finished chewing to say anything because you knew it was rude to talk with your mouth full. Fine. Just make sure you stay on the hill behind our house with all the poppies, okay? Dell, Mom, that's where most of them are. The idea had only just been planted in your head, but already you could picture all the glowing lights spread out in front of you, like fairies from the bedtime stories Mommy read sometimes. Lizzie is awfully demanding. Fun fact, we know from this that they are on, assuming they're in the United States, they are on the East Coast, because there are no fireflies on the West Coast. I went to school back east, and I freaked out when I saw fireflies for the first time, because I didn't know what the heck they were. Obviously, I'd heard of fireflies, but I didn't know what they looked like, and I was just like, what the heck is that? And they're like, it's fireflies. And I was like, oh, okay. Nothing to be alarmed about. All too quickly, it became a race to see who could finish their food first. No choking at the dinner table now. That's right. If someone died, we'd have to cancel the firefly trip after all. Mom said it like a joke, but you knew they were both telling you kids to slow down. Shiloh did immediately. When you glanced at Lizzie, you saw her still eating faster than she should. Elizabeth!
Jeez.
No one's gonna die. A knock on the door interrupted Mom before she could no doubt scold your sister. I'll get it. Your big sister jumped out of her seat and ran over to the door, pulling it open without even looking out the window to see who it was. Huh? You shifted in your seat to try to get a glimpse of the unexpected guest.
Hi.
Good evening, Cove. Your mommy had already walked to the door by the time you managed to see past Shiloh's flappy hat.
How are you?
What are you doing here, honey? Being patient and waiting to find out the reason for Cove's visit was difficult. You briefly considered leaving your chair, but when you looked up, there was a small smile on Cove's face directed at you. If you tried to get down with him watching, you'd trip for sure, or do something else embarrassing. So you decided to just stay put and smile back. Then for a few seconds, Cove said nothing. He only stood there and looked up at your mommy with a face almost like he was considering turning around and leaving. My dad told me to drop this off because I guess he borrowed it from you. Cove took a familiar screwdriver from his large side pocket, eyes now dropped to the floor. We left ours back home when we moved. Great, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here, why don't you come inside for a bit? Lizzie crossed her arms and lifted her chin. Cove shrugged, and Mom stood from the table too. I'll give your dad a call to let him know you got here all right. Cove shuffled fully inside, eyes remaining on the ground. Mommy closed the door behind him. Hi, Cove. Shiloh gave Cove a friendly smile while waving by holding up his hand and opening and closing his fingers. Cove nodded in response. Cove, are you going to come catch fireflies with us? You could see Lizzie eyeing you for mentioning the excursion to an outsider, but she'd get over it. You bit down on your lip shyly, hoping Cove would say yes, but not wanting to provoke Lizzie any further.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. I've never caught one before. Too bad he didn't have a chance before now. Fireflies weren't out when he first moved in, and there must not have been anywhere he used to live. We can't go until dinner. Until after dinner. After she pointed this out, Lizzie walked back to the table and took her seat. There wasn't much left on her plate. Since this was very true, you decided to finish up your own stuff as well. Cove stepped closer and eyed what was on the menu for your family's meal. Have you eaten yet? Yeah, my dad and I ate earlier. What did you have? Eggs. The clipped one-word answer seemed to discourage Shiloh from asking any more questions. His eyes slowly wandered back to the last scraps of food on his plate. Her phone call with Cove's dad must have ended because your mom came back into the room.
Okay.
Cove, your dad said you can stay for a little while if you like, but he's going to come get you before it gets too much later. Sure.
Fine.
Oh, fun. This will be so nice. If you were demanding like Lizzie, you'd be grounded. Yeah. As you polished off the meal, you hoped it would be too. The three of you all finished eating shortly after, and Lizzie led the way outside. Remember, don't stray too far. It's fine, Mom. Shiloh trailed so closely after Lizzie, he was nearly stepping on her heels. Cove hesitated at the door. You smiled lightly at Cove, gesturing for him to follow. After a moment, he did. The two of you were a good 10 or 15 feet behind Lizzie and Shiloh by the time you walked outside. You pushed the door shut behind you, watching their figures get farther and farther away. You're so slow, Kate. We don't have all night. You started to run when you heard Lizzie's voice calling you, but paused when you saw Cove still walking at a relaxed pace. Are you not going to come? Cove gave a quizzical look. No, why? No reason. You gestured for Cove to follow and took off, feet kicking up dirt as you darted behind the house. Cove wasn't too far behind, and upon reaching the hill, a gorgeous sight awaited both of you. Bright, winking lights floated like buoys on a wave. One drifted close enough for you to see the firefly at the center of the glow, and you looked at Cove, excited to see his reaction. He looked just as entranced.
Wow.
Shiloh took a moment to come over and welcomed both of you to the hill. Hi guys, it's really great out, huh? See how many there are? Yeah. A firefly danced through the air, landing on Cove's sea green head. Covering your mouth with a hand, the sound escaped you and Cove looked at you in confusion. What?
Oh,
Oh look, Lizzie has one. That's amazing. Shiloh ran to the highest point of the hill, making sure not to lose his hat or backpack along the way. You hummed as the group divided and conquered, shifting your gaze to the dozens of other fireflies sailing around. The game was on. Spotting one close by, you approached it with assassin-like stealth, crouching down to make yourself seem like less of a threat. Ah, we're surrounded, covering fire. I'll get a better vantage point, right? Slowly dragging one foot in front of the other, you crept up towards it, arms outstretched. You closed your hands around the little glowing orb, careful not to crush it. The firefly landed on your palm, almost docile, and you stared down at your prize in delight. Its tiny legs tickled your skin, and you giggled at the sensation. Cove kept up with his own target, but when he tried to grab it, his pink cast waved awkwardly through the air, foiling his efforts to clap his hands around the firefly. Aww. Cove watched it vanish into thin air with a dissatisfied expression on his face. Cove, here's one. Do you want to look at it? Cove gave one more look in the direction of his lost prize before coming over and peering at the insect still crawling across your palm. You held out your hand and he leaned closer, eyes widening a tad behind his glasses. Cove remained hypnotized by the little bug as he inched his hand closer to yours. Ultimately, he settled his fingers lightly over the top of the ones you were holding open. It tingled. You stayed very still. You were so nervous, you thought you stopped breathing, but no matter what you did, you didn't want to scare the shiny treasure. The firefly, noticing the new connection, crawled up on Cove's hand. He quietly gasped. It worked! Yeah, you got one! Cove's lips turned into a slow smile, and his eyes shined brighter than the bug. Thanks, Kate. Your eyes and his locked together while still holding hands. He suddenly pulled away. Startled by the extreme movement, the tiny light disappeared before you could even blink. Your firefly was gone. Sorry. You teared up. Jeez, you forgave him. That's okay. I couldn't keep her forever. Yeah, right. Aww.
You're right.
Right. Bugs have to stay outside. Let's get another. We could work together. His face broke out in a wide grin. We'll get a bunch. With renewed vigor, you ran out onto the hill. You're not sure how much time passed while you were in the thick of it. All you could focus on was the adventure at hand. No critter was safe from your grasp. At first, you tried to keep a tally of how many you had caught, but once the number grew higher than 10, you had no more fingers left to count with. You were having the time of your life, racing up and down the hill with the crash of the ocean and the sound of everyone's laughter echoing in the background.
Kate.
This way! You followed the sound of Cove's voice to the top of the hill, watching as he stretched his arms in front of him, reaching with his fingers and only narrowly missing his target. Cove and you took turns trying to scare fireflies in the direction of the other. You showed him some techniques you had learned, like how to cup your hands correctly, and he listened attentively before trying for himself. There were a few times when you almost ran into each other, giggling as you dove to the side at the last moment. Luckily, disaster was avoided each time. It was an overall huge success with the both of you catching multiple fireflies each. Eventually, the fireflies began to thin out, and your energy started to lapse. You decided it was time to call off the hunt. Cove didn't complain. He breathed in heavily, and his face seemed really flushed. That was fun, a lot of fun. You smiled at him broadly, happy he had enjoyed the activity. Yeah, it was.
Come on!
Get up here, we're gonna have a race. The shouting caught you off guard. It had been quite a while since you heard from Lizzie or Shiloh. You glanced over to see them both standing at the top of the hill again, Lizzie beckoning to you with quick hand gestures. If she was like that, you knew there wasn't much room for disagreement. Up the incline you went. From the corner of your eye, you saw Cove was coming as well. He didn't care for Lizzie a lot, so you thought he might be intrigued by the idea. Hi.
Cove.
Cove, you can't roll down the hill because you could hurt your arm again. You'll be the referee for the rest of us. As Lizzie pointed this out, Cove froze in place. Oh, it was that kind of race. He frowned down at his cast. This was the second time it got in the way tonight. What? Yeah, you'll watch and see who gets to the bottom first. That's important. Got it? The cast was sturdy. If he was careful, he could have done it. Lizzie might have just been looking for a reason to make someone else the referee, but it was already decided.
Really?
Really? Why? You don't have to. It's okay. I want to watch. You moved beside him on the top of the hill, even though Lizzie eyed you and made a face. That's not how races work. We only need one referee. Shrugging her shoulders, you refused to budge, and Lizzie let out a huff before throwing her hands in the air. Fine, I'll be the winner whether you join or not. Lizzie moved to lay down, and Shiloh did the same. Cove stood slightly to the side to get a better vantage point, and you stood next to him. Countdown! Cove stood up a little straighter. Seemed like he was taking his newfound referee duties seriously. 3, 2, 1, go! Lizzie and Shiloh took off, letting gravity do the work, and rolling at high speed toward the bottom of the hill. You and Cove leaned forward to watch them go, eyes peeled for which of the two would reach the bottom first. They were both neck and neck until about halfway down the hill, Lizzie started to veer off to the side, giving Shiloh a huge advantage. She obviously hadn't noticed a thing, and as soon as Shiloh reached the bottom of the hill, he jumped up excitedly and threw his hands in the air. I won! Almost immediately, he fell back down to the grass, still dizzy from his roll down the hill. Lizzie stomped out of the bush she had ended up in, sputtering angrily and brushing leaves off from the front of her dress. Not bad. You got lucky. Let's do it again and see who wins for real. Kids, it's time to come in. No. You snickered, feeling grateful you hadn't been part of the mini debacle. You caught Cove's eyes and saw he was doing the same. It had gotten late and was beginning to feel just a bit chilly as you made your way out of the hills, but the cold in the air hadn't dampened anyone's spirits. The four of you walked back home together side by side with down your neighborhood street, discussing the evening, with each person trying to prove that they were the one who caught the most fireflies. Yeah, get wrecked, Lizzie, exactly. You knew that whoever really did catch the most didn't matter much anyway. All that mattered was that you all had a good time, which, judging by the smiles on everyone's faces, you did. Oh, and then summer ended. We'll save one more time. Yeah, I'll move on to the next step. This is why you get upset, because you've never had experiences like this. Well, nobody can experience everything. I'll also be back to magic on Saturday, I think. Mommy says I'll never get tired of that view. You stood beside your moms, Lizzie, and Cove as the five of you watched the sun dip into the ocean somewhere far, far away. You like to imagine it cooling off in the water, resting itself before getting ready to shine brightly again tomorrow. That was a fun day. I didn't know they had magicians on the shopping street now. Neither did I. Oh no, we are so dull. Let's get out more. He didn't do real magic, Mom. How did you figure that one out? Because I know, that's not what real magic looks like. Oh, Lizzie dear, there's all kinds of magic in the world. Lizzie gave Mommy a suspicious look, but didn't dispute the claim. You looked over at Cove, who hadn't said a word since you started home. He didn't look upset, though, just content. You're aware he still hadn't quite warmed up to your parents. Yeah, only Cove's wizard family knows real magic, right? Well, we can't sit out here all night. Time to hurry home and get cooking. Who's helping with dinner? Lizzie immediately let out a groan. Mom, summer's almost over. The protest was obvious. You could practically see school on the horizon. You certainly didn't want to spend your last bits of freedom cooking dinner. You could do that any other day. I'm hungry. Lizzie may not want to, but you plan on going home. Mom looked down at Lizzie with a sigh as she continued pleading. We'll help with dinner tomorrow. Soon we'll have homework and reading to do. We can't do work now, too. Lizzie made her case and then stomped her foot in the ground. Well, come on, Pam. I can help you with dinner. Mommy leaned in for a hug, and you knew that Lizzie was very close to victory.
Okay.
All right. But as soon as dinner's ready, you lot are coming inside, understood? Yes, Mom. Cove, dear, you're welcome to join us as well. You sent him a small smile, which he returned. Cove gave a non-committal shrug to your mommy, which you took as agreement. So much to do, so little time. Maybe I could still get the seashell bracelet at Tines and Trinkets. Ooh, or maybe the playground. Or the fireflies will probably be coming out, right? We can't go too far. Lizzie pouted as you pointed this out. Mom said to be back in time for dinner. It won't take that long. A strong gust of wind made you shiver. Lizzie huffed as she wrapped her arms around herself.
Rude.
Doesn't the wind know summer's not over yet? That's all Lizzie said before abruptly turning on her heel and heading off in the direction your mothers had gone. Where are you going? I'm going to my room. I have lots to plan if I want to make the most of tomorrow. You thought this over, looking off towards the water again. Lizzie didn't wait, and before long she was disappearing off down the road. Are you going home too, Kate? Cove was leaning toward the beach, and you could tell he wanted to stay out a little bit longer. Stay with Cove, obviously. Cove gave you a smile that you couldn't help but return. He made a little gesture that you interpreted as, follow me, and then started heading to the waves. Cove knelt down, picking up something you quickly identified as a smooth rock. He reared his arm back, then tossed it out into the water. I was impressed over how far he got to go. It sailed out way into the sea. I looked for my own rock. Deciding to join Cove, you searched nearby for any rocks or shells you could throw too. You found a shell that would suit your purposes, a smile growing as you tossed it as hard as you could. It landed with a wet-sounding thunk a few feet away and slipped down into the water. When you looked over at Cove, he didn't seem to notice that his throw had been more impressive. Cove was looking down at his cast, scratching idly at the pink surface, even though you were pretty sure he couldn't feel it. His brows were furrowed, and there was a frown on his face.
It's not fair.
I've had to wear this cast for ages. I can't even swim. He was jet skiing. Cool. You immediately regretted saying that loudly, your face heating up, but it was too late to take it back now. Cove looked a little taken aback by your outburst, but after a second he gave a small nod. You thought he spotted his cheeks turning a bit pink. He turned away before you could be sure, though. He then continued to explain. I crashed. Makes sense. He gestured to his arm as if to say, and this was the result. It's hard to believe you're allowed to jet ski.
Whoa.
I'm not. Oh. Cove let out a huff, plopping down into the sand. I can't believe summer's almost over. You sat down next to him and he nodded in agreement, regardless of the sudden topic change. I don't want to go to school. I mean, I would. I don't want to go to a new school. I think it'll be the same school as you and Lizzie. My dad said something about that. That's great. We can sit together during lunch. You'd only ever been to the one school, but you were sure that his old school couldn't have been that much better. Then again, he did have to make new friends and meet new teachers. It could be kind of scary. Cove shook his head, then wrapped his good arm around his knees as he drew them to his chest. You heard a sniffling sound, and when you took a good look at his face, you realized his eyes were wet.
I want to go home.
The sudden sadness caught you off guard. You were so excited Cove would be going to your school, it made you feel bad that he was so upset about it. Well, can I walk back with you? Cove shook his head at the offer. No, I want to go back home. Right, Cove wanted to go back to his old home, the one that sat waiting someplace far from here, the one he would bring up whenever he felt this sad. It had been a while since he had moved in, but he didn't seem to feel any better about being here. You settled back down into the sand, trying to consider what to do. This is sickeningly sweet, right? This can be your home. It's a really nice home if you give it a chance. Cove didn't respond to that. He just tightened his arm around his knees, resting his chin on them. You're not going to leave, right? You'll still be around? The question was a little surprising. Of course. Parents would have mentioned if you were going to move or something, right? After a second, Cove gave a little nod. Once I get my cast off, we could go swimming. You were fine with him changing the subject again. Okay. You had to say swimming did sound fun, even if it was already getting chilly out. Cove smiled, then looked back to the waves. My dad keeps saying I'll get used to everything eventually, that I'd feel better then. It used to make me angry. I didn't want to get used to everything. You spared a glance over at Cove, and see the anger had slipped off his face in favor of something almost puzzled. But maybe that would be okay after all, as long as I really do feel better. I can't see it. You could remember a long time ago when you'd first started going to school. You had absolutely not been okay with the idea of being away from your parents for most of the day, to listen to strangers tell you what to do, and sit with kids you never met before. Things changing is hard. Held his hand. Not quite sure what to say to that, so instead you reach out and take hold of Cove's hand. The one closest to you is the one in his cast, so you made sure you were very gentle. As you watched, Cove's eyes got a little misty once more. You got the feeling that they were different tears than the ones from before, though. I hope next summer I'll surf and go exploring and everything will feel like it's supposed to again. You gave a little nod, resting your head on your own knees. The two of you sat quietly, just taking in the sounds of the waves. You hoped that Cove would be able to accept this place as his new home. You would definitely try to help in what ways you could. There were so many wonderful things here, and Cove probably hadn't even seen yet. And that we haven't seen yet either. Lost in thought, you started a bit when you heard a faint familiar sound. The sound of your mom shouting your name. You looked over your shoulder, realizing it was probably time for dinner. If you two hug, you will puke rainbows, right? You were reluctant to move, having enjoyed sitting together, but you were hungry. You stood and dusted the sand off yourself. My mom's calling. It's time for dinner. You should come. Cove looked up at you, expressing screaming reluctance, yet ultimately, okay. When you smiled, Cove returned with one of his own.
Thanks.
It was nice, where you were right then. But the two of you couldn't stay there in your own little world any longer. You were being called forward. So the both of you ran off toward your house, leaving the waves and summer behind. In between. So here, so now I'm gonna be older, so I can like change my hairstyle and stuff. I can add earrings if I want to. Not that you can see them because my hair's too long. Aw, thank you. And I can change my affection level. Though my crush is locked in. I can't lower it. So should I still be nervous? Or I can be more relaxed with him? Or I can be like, yeah, I really like him. What do you guys think? My thought is that I'm probably a little bit more chill with him now because I know him better. If you were all in, okay, we'll do direct crush. Yeah. And then I actually don't like to do the Cove, what's it called? Customization. Achievement unlocked. Direct. August ended, September began. It was time to go back to school. Lizzie groaned and complained the entire first week. She hated going to classes. Still, there were interesting things to do that couldn't be done anywhere else. A random button for the editor. I prefer him to reflect what my choices do. Yeah. That's what I prefer, is to have him reflect my choices. Lizzie groaned and complained the entire first week. She hated going to classes. Still, there were interesting things to do that couldn't be done anywhere else. You weren't sure how Cove felt about it. He was enrolled that year. That was like a sign Cove would be staying in Sunset Bird for a while. At school, he was alright, but kept his distance from the other kids, from what you saw anyway. Whenever he could, Cove stuck to you like glue. He didn't even mind that much what you did to pass the time, as long as it was together. And that was just fine. You felt for him the same way you always had. Nothing changed. Except, as you got older, you were able to understand better exactly what those feelings had and still meant. That year, the divorce of Cove's parents was finalized. You overheard your parents talking about it, saying Cove's dad got full custody. At first, you were worried that meant bad news. It had made Mr. Holden cry, apparently. Then you found out it meant Cove would keep living with his dad. He would only stay with his mom a few weeks of the year. Cove cried too, for different reasons, you thought. It seemed like Cove and his dad might move again, but Mr. Holden decided to stay after all. Mom asked him about it once. He said he didn't want to uproot Cove's life a second time. Mr. Holden tried to get Cove to like Sunset Bird more. He kept encouraging his son to go out and see the place. Sometimes Mr. Holden volunteered you to spend time with Cove. He seemed very confident that it was an effective strategy. Cove never talked to anyone about what happened with his parents, and withdrew whenever it was brought up. They do have the they pronoun for inclusion, and you can also change your pronoun if you want to. So say you started as a girl, but then, you transitioned into a boy. You can change your pronoun mid-game. It was hard for him, yet nobody knew how to help. Eventually, Cove stopped crying on his own. You couldn't understand what had changed, but you hoped that you could help him feel better still, since even without the tears, he looked sad. Maybe one day he could say out loud what he felt inside. After that, it felt like things had gone back to normal, except what was normal didn't stay the same. Years passed, and suddenly you were in middle school. You weren't a kid anymore. You were 13 years old. That officially made you a teen, even if your sister didn't agree. The toys and crayons that used to litter every free space in your room had been packed away somewhere, replaced by new hobbies. There were other changes too. Cove's cast got taken off. It was weird to see him without it initially. Underneath, the pink plaster ended up being a long, thin scar that snaked across his forearm. Cove's chest puffed out in pride when someone drew attention to it. He also went through a major growth spurt. He was the tallest student in his class for 2 years in a row. Cove will probably hold that spot again next time. In class, people knew him for more than just being tall. He also stood out because of how well he did in gym and other athletic situations. Over the years, he began opening up more too. You saw him talking amicably with other kids or neighbors from time to time. And the only kid that came to visit the neighborhood when you were little, Shiloh, well, he was gone. He and his mom moved back south because of her work, just 1 year after Cove came to Sunset Bird. It had really been upsetting when he left. Lizzie was inconsolable for weeks, but nobody talked about Shiloh anymore. It was a long time ago. You learned some heartbreaking things became less sad the further away they were, even if they had never gotten any better. That was sad in its own way. I feel like that's just so correct. Like, I remember in my childhood when, a friend moved away and it was just like, oh, it's so terrible. And now it's like, okay, it's just a thing that happened. The emotion is kind of separate from it now. Things at home were different too. You still lived in the same house and all that, but it wasn't how it was before. Ma dyed her hair purple, wanting something new, and liked it so much that she kept dyeing it. You remember calling her mommy as a kid, but something like that seemed awkward nowadays. You were much too old for the word. So, see, the names are changing. Lizzie felt too mature for her nickname too. She insisted on everyone calling her Elizabeth, so you did. Your mom soon gave her permission to go places other than the playground and shopping street, which she took advantage of. You rarely saw her around the old neighborhood. In fact, she hardly spent time with you the way she did before. Elizabeth instead associated more and more with girls from school who were her own age. You remember when you were 13? Sheesh. Maybe the difference between 13 and 15 was greater than the difference between 8 and 10. You started befriending new people yourself, like Derek Suarez. He didn't live in the neighborhood or go to the same school. What happened was his and Cove's dad struck up a business partnership a few months ago. Since then, Derek would pop up in the area now and then. It seemed Mr. Suarez was happy to let Derek tag along to his work if Derek had time for it. Without a doubt, everyone and everything around you had changed, in small and big ways. You had too. As time went by, though, it was easy to settle into this new normal. Then, before you knew it, school was over and summer vacation had come again. It was the first day of summer vacation. The sun was hot as ever, but you were inside and away from its harsh rays. To be more specific, you were wide awake, about to head off and enjoy your time off. You made sure to slather on a generous amount of sunscreen so you didn't get burnt. You were looking in the mirror, studying the clothes you'd thrown on when your bedroom door opened without warning. In the reflection, you saw Elizabeth raise an eyebrow. Look at her, she looks older! Have you been staring at yourself the whole morning? Could you knock next time? She ignored that, crossing her arms over her chest with a disgruntled expression. Clearly, she hadn't come in just to see you. Mom told me to tell you that your baby boyfriend is here and wants to see you again, like he does every day. He brought some happy summer gift from Mr. Holden. Mom wants you to take it from him, say thanks or whatever. You did not like the way she called him your baby boyfriend, but you knew by now that saying so wouldn't stop her. So come down already. Say be right there. Elizabeth said nothing else, having done what was instructed of her. Now alone, you focused on the mirror once again. You can decide on a height. I was pretty tall for my age when I was 13. Cove tended to be the only person around who was even taller, at least among teens your own age. Liked your height. Suited you well in your mind. Then you put the finishing touches on your outfit while ruminating on the situation. Careless as they had been, Elizabeth's words piqued your curiosity. You planned on going over to see what Cole was up to today, so this worked in your favor. It was when you spotted your reflection that you realized you were smiling wide. You were looking forward to seeing him. Is there an option where you're monstrously tall, the villagers run from you? I don't think so. You left your room, going down the stairs 2 steps at a time. And now we are at step 2, second chance. I think this is a pretty natural stopping point. I'm going to save the game because it is getting to be lunchtime. So I'm going to see if there's anybody else on here who we can raid. I want to thank you guys for stopping in today. I hope this was fun. I will probably do this again next weekend. Probably same day, Sunday. Saturdays, I think, are for magic. There are not very many people online right now. I guess I'll go ahead. You feel old now? I guess we'll go ahead and just end the stream without raiding, because there aren't too many folks on. Found it delightful, want to relax on the weekend. Aw, great! I'm glad. I hope it was really relaxing. I enjoyed this visual novel for that reason. So, well, I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and please be sure to stay safe.